Okay, sorry about that. Let's see if that works.
Here, unmute it temporarily over here so we can hear it.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, well, just let us know if it worked. I think I know what the problem was, and I think I fixed it, so we'll get back into this.
Well, should we wait a little longer?
Well, I want to make sure
people in, or
well, no, we're gonna get started. But I need to know if it worked. I need.
Joshman says I don't hear an echo, so we're all good.
Okay, good.
Okay, great.
Okay, sorry about that. So, all right. Let's get on with the first video of the day, Spyborgs. There's not many of you in the stream right now, but that is okay. I'm sure more people will trickle in. So, here we go.
I don't remember this game. Although I wasn't there when you were playing it. I was
this
boarding academy.
All the footage you see is me and Lizzie.
Okay.
It's time for the Spyborgs review for the Wii. Before I start, I would just like to say Happy 4th of July, America. I bought this game used for only $5 at GameStop, and since it was so cheap, I was expecting a bad game. But you know what? This game surprised me on how fun it really was, so let's see why. This game is a 2.5D beat 'em up. The story is about 3 cyborgs who are trying to stop an evil cyborg from doing bad stuff. You know what? I've got to be honest. The story is so bland and dull that I basically didn't pay any attention throughout the time I was playing it. You have to go through numerous levels defeating evil robots that the main villain has sent. The story is bland, but the gameplay makes up for it. The main feature of gameplay is that in each level, you will always play in co-op mode, whether you have a friend to play with or not. If you don't have anyone to play with, the computer will be your teammate and help you defeat evil. Hooray for teamwork! Of course, having a friend play with you makes the game much more fun. At the beginning of each stage, you'll get to choose one of 3 cyborgs you want to play as. My girlfriend and I didn't like the big ape Spyborg, so that's why you'll see us using the same 2 Spyborgs throughout this review. Each character has his or her own special abilities and attacks to destroy enemies with, such as guns for one character and a sword for another. Now you can just mash buttons to defeat your opponents with, however each character has combo attacks which do more damage. You can perform these combo moves by specifically alternating between the 2 different attack buttons on the controllers. Then there are a handful of co-op finishing moves, which when performed will put both characters into a QuickTime event, where each player will have to perform some kind of action, whether with buttons or motion-controlled movements with the Wiimote, to defeat an opponent. No matter how strong the opponent, excluding boss battles, you will always destroy it with a finishing move. Throughout each level, you will find containers, some of which are invisible, which hold different kinds of sparks. What each type of spark does depends on the color. Orange sparks will fill up your finishing move gauge, blue sparks will heal you and or your teammate, green sparks will give both characters invincibility temporarily, and red sparks will give you experience points. As well as finding red spark containers, destroying enemies will also give you red sparks. As you fight enemies, you'll gain a combo multiplier at the top of the screen for every consecutive robot you destroy within a few seconds of each kill. Bottom line, the higher the combo, the more bonus XP you get. At the end of each level, which, by the way, can range between really short and pretty long, the screen will show your score of how many combos you received, and then you can exchange your XP for upgrades like health, armor, and new combos. The thing is, though, both characters' each individual XP is pulled at the end of each level, and depending on how much XP you have, you'll usually only be able to give upgrades to one character at a time. It's not a horrible system, but it does get annoying, especially because the difficulty can be just ruthless. There are 5 difficulty settings, and for the most time we played, we stayed on the second difficulty, but there were a few times in the game where we had to set it on the easiest mode. Now, of course you can block attacks, but the main problem I think was that the action could get pretty hectic. No, there's nothing wrong with that, but it could become difficult seeing when your character was taking damage. There is a health bar you can watch, but you're mostly watching the action on screen trying not to die, but before you know it, you're dead. If one teammate dies, the other has to destroy all of the enemies in a section of the level before the other can be revived. If both players die together, you have to restart the entire level. The graphics are really good, nothing really blocky, great physics and detail as well. The frame rate was great for the most part, however when things started to get crazy with lots of enemies, you could tell there was definitely some slowdown, but overall it was really good. The controls are great. You'll use the Wiimote nunchuck combo, using buttons on both controllers to attack, jump, and defend. You will use the motion controls to find invisible containers, as well as performing finishing moves. This is where the motion controls could become frustrating. The sensors would sometimes not read your movements correctly, and then you just wasted a finishing move. It wouldn't happen too much, but when it did, it was very disappointing. The camera was good for the most part, but it could become an issue sometimes. It will always follow player 1, and if both players are heading towards the opposite sides of the screen, the camera will stay in a zoomed out fixed position, which can make both players vulnerable to off-screen enemies. They could attack us, but we couldn't attack them. Other than that annoyance, the camera was pretty good for the most part. The boss battles were fun, but the main problem with them is that there weren't enough of them. After over 5 hours of playing, we only encountered 2 boss fights out of dozens of levels, which was disappointing in my opinion. Also,
Only
due to the
2?
demanding difficulty, some of them could become extremely frustrating to beat, especially this boss battle. The biggest problem I have with the game is that it is so repetitive with a lack of variety. It's constantly the same thing over and over and over in every level. And yes, I know it's a beat 'em up, but the game can become boring due to the lack of variety in enemies, as well as movesets for each character. It's pretty fun in the beginning, but just becomes too monotonous later on. This is why I would have liked to have more boss battles. They really boosted the fun. I know I've already said this, but another problem is the difficulty. Now I've said before that I like a challenge, and I do, but this game definitely goes overboard, which just decreased the fun factor for both of us. There is bonus material and medals you can acquire if you perform specific actions in the levels, such as figuring out a way to destroy 3 enemies at once. Spyborgs is a pretty good game. Really good graphics, great controls, fun, explosive gameplay, fun boss battles, and some really cool looking movesets. However, all of this can be halted by the supremely repetitive lack of variety of enemies and movesets gameplay, not enough boss battles, a dull story, a somewhat annoying camera, and the difficulty, even on low settings, can be very frustrating. It's still a pretty fun game though, and at its current super low price, I recommend checking it out. If you had fun with old school beat 'em ups, then I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy Spyborgs as well. This game gets a 3.25 out of 5 with the title of good.
Whoa, what's with the audio? I honestly don't remember that review at all. That was probably the second time I've ever watched it, and I just completely forgot everything about that.
Okay, so yes, happy Mario Day to everybody. Some of you may not have been here when I said I looked at the deals on the Switch shop, and there's nothing that stands out to me for Mario games. And I don't own Odyssey, but I've beaten it already, and I'm just like, I don't feel the need about it. And actually, Lizzie has a copy of it.
Oh.
A digital copy.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just like,
I have not seen the deals going on.
No.
So I don't know what there is.
Dean Gavitt, so you were dating Lizzie at the time of this review? Yes, I was. I don't remember when this review came out.
Well, you said it. It was 4th of July.
Oh, yeah. 4th of July. So, yeah, we were still dating. We got engaged in September of that year. By the way, I'm stream hopping because SOTC? I don't know what that is.
Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Alright, that's fine.
Wait, where is that? Stream hopping because SOTC is being streamed elsewhere. Yeah, I guess it's Shadow of the Colossus, yeah.
Okay. Not a problem.
I've kind of noticed that a lot of Wii games have that weird bloom effect. Have you noticed that? It's like where the light is kind of bloomy. Like GameCube games generally didn't look like that. It started with like the Wii era.
It could be that, but it could also be the hardware I was using to capture.
Oh, really?
The composite cables, the red, yellow, white. If they're low quality, it can make the lighting distorted, and it can make everything look fuzzy.
Okay.
So, like just a couple months ago, I bought it's composite to component cables. So it's composite from the system, but to the TV, it's component, and the difference is night and day. It's crazy. So when I was recording Frequency in last December, I tried it with just the regular PS2 composite, and it looked terrible. It was just awful. So I got the converter, if you will, and whew, way better. Especially when you're trying to play on HD TVs, when on a console it's made for CRTs. You absolutely need that type of cable if you want to enjoy it. Did you see there was a announcement from Nintendo today about their continuation with Illumination Studios?
No. So does that mean they're going to make a sequel to the movie?
They did not say specifically. They said it is within the Mario universe.
Oh, okay.
But it's going to be released.
So it could be like a spin-off or a sequel or whatever.
Yeah,
they're just kind of covering their whole bases.
Yeah, they are working on it right now. It's going to release 2 years from now.
2 years,
like spring of 2026.
Okay.
So, but they are continuing to do that.
That makes sense. That movie is like, I think it was like the 10th best selling movie, or not best selling, but like best performing animated movie of all time, or just movie of all time, not even animated.
Really?
Yeah, it made a lot of money.
I think it is a sequel. Well, actually, I don't know. Since it's taking 2 years to make, it may be new assets and environments and everything. So maybe, but I don't know.
Well, that's usually how long movies take to make, especially animated movies, right?
Well, I mean that's going to be a 3-year gap then.
Oh, 3 years. Oh, right.
So
yeah, I don't know.
Well,
maybe
if it is, I mean, if it's a sequel, then I can't help but think that Nintendo is influencing them to say, take your time. How they do with Mario and Zelda games. Take your time. So. Anyway, let's get on to the next video, Tornado Outbreak.
It's time for the Tornado Outbreak review for the Wii. This is a game I've always wanted to try when it came out, but I just never got around to renting it, and I thought the $30 price tag was a bit too high. But now that I've bought it for only $8 used and played it, was it worth the wait? Let's find out. The story in this game is about a wind warrior named Zephyr, who travels to Earth with his leader and army of warriors, looking for and trying to capture fire flyers, which are basically fire elementals. Zephyr can become a tornado, but at the beginning of each stage, you're a small dust devil and must move around each level, trying to destroy everything that you can to become bigger and more destructive.
It's Katamari.
The thing is, though, since you are only so big, you have to find objects in each level that can actually be destroyed by your small self. At the top left of the screen is a gauge, and each time you destroy something, it will be filled up so much. When you fill it up all the way, you will gain a level, which will make you larger and more destructive, but only by a little bit each time. As you roam each level, you will see which objects are destroyable by your current tornado state when you move closer to them, since they will start to move and be sucked into the vortex. Objects that can't be swallowed won't budge until you are at the correct minimal level at which they can be destroyed. Each level is kind of like a maze. At the beginning, you will be put into an area where little destroyable objects are close by, but you will have to search through each level trying to find more destroyable objects at your current tornado level. This puts strategy into the game, but there's even more than that. The main goal of each level is to find and capture fire flyers, which usually reside underneath objects like buildings or cars, and put them into the Lodestar, which is a device that creates cloud cover for Zephyr and other warriors. You can tell fire flyers are underneath objects because fire will be billowing up from underneath them. When you destroy an object that has fire flyers underneath it, the fire flyers will be caught in your swirl for a few seconds, and then they will be transferred to the Lodestar. To give the game more strategy, though, if you hold down the B button before you destroy an object with the fire flyer underneath it, you will gain a short burst of speed when you do destroy it. The goal is to try to find a chain of fire flyers and capture and hold them as long as you can before sending them to the Lodestar. The whole point of this is because you have a time limit in each level. Each time you transfer a fire flyer, you'll gain a tiny bit of bonus time. If you transfer a lot of fire flyers at once, you'll gain a lot of bonus time. However, you can only hold the fire flyer for about 3 seconds before it's automatically transferred. Also, you will move a lot slower while you're holding down the B button to hold the fire flyers, so that's why you want to find a chain of fire flyers to get those short bursts of
Man, you
speed.
say fire flyers
Each level is a small cloud-covered area surrounded by a sunlit perimeter. You can't touch the sunlight, or else you'll lose the fireflies you're currently holding to the lodestar, and you'll lose a small amount of valuable time. At the end of each level, you'll be given a score based on how many fireflies you captured, and basically how well you did. The graphics remind me of Looney Tunes for some reason, but that's not a bad thing. Although I wish the game was more realistic looking, it's still good, and destroying things is fun to do, as well as fun to watch. The controls are great. You'll use the Wiimote Nunchuck combo using the control stick to move, and like I said before, press and hold the B button to hold fireflies. You'll also get to jump in the later levels by pressing the A button. I guess the only issue I had was moving to the left and right when your tornado became huge. I'm pretty sure the developers were going for a realistic sense, which is fine, but sometimes moving left and right felt a bit too stiff and or slow. Other than that, the controls are great. The camera is probably the biggest issue in the game. You have some control over it, and what control you do have is just moving the viewing angle to the left and right. However, you would sometimes not be able to hardly move it at all, and to make it even more annoying, the camera likes to give you a view right behind the tornado a lot, which is not the best angle. I would have really liked it if you could have moved it to a 45-degree top-down view, so you could actually see where you were going if you moved directly forward. But no, you can't do this, which can make the game frustrating to play. Now bear in mind that it didn't do this all the time, but enough to really annoy you. In each stage, a friend can pick up another Wiimote Nunchuck combo and start playing co-op with you. The thing is, though, it can decrease the fun, since the screen will be split vertically, and you won't have much of a viewing window on the right and left sides of your portion of the screen. The split screen will only be in effect if both players are at least at a minimal distance from each other. If they get close enough, the screen will revert back to single-player mode. If you're going to play co-op, it's probably best if you stick together, as you will destroy things faster, and you won't have a small viewing window. It's also annoying when the screen switches from single to split, and vice versa, because the screen will flash and the game will pause very quickly and briefly, which can be extremely annoying. As you progress through the game, the levels become more and more challenging. This is a good thing, but can also be a very frustrating thing as well. Since the levels are designed for you to seek out paths of destructible items in the quickest, most efficient way, you might spend quite a lot of time on some levels trying to find the best path. It took me a lot of tries on some levels to find the best paths, which in the end just decreased the fun factor for me. I would be off by like 3 seconds, and my time limit would be up, and I would have to start the level all over again. It seems like there's barely any room for mistakes, or the time limit is just too low, or both. Now you will eventually beat the levels, but it can be quite frustrating as you go through. Each level has 3 stages and then a boss fight at the end. First you'll have to pass through gateways in a huge circle at high speeds to create a giant storm, and then you'll have to maneuver your way through cloud cover to totems which you'll have to destroy. Once you're at a totem, you'll rapidly shake the Wiimote to damage the totems and eventually destroy them. Every boss fight is essentially the same, but with more totems in each progressing level. It would have been nice to have more variety, but they're still fun to beat. Tornado Outbreak is a pretty fun and quite addicting game. Good graphics, great controls, destroying everything is very fun and addicting, there's quite a bit of strategy instead of just mindlessly destroying objects, pretty fun boss battles, and co-op mode is a nice feature. However, I found the game to be quite frustrating in the later levels, as finding the most efficient path could be a painful task due to a pretty short time limit and very little room for mistakes. There was little freedom with the camera, and co-op mode, even though it can be fun, can also actually make the game less enjoyable and more frustrating, as you had a pretty narrow viewing window unless you stayed together, which wasn't always the easiest thing to do. It's still a fun game though, and I think people would enjoy it. I'm not sure it's for everyone, as it can be pretty difficult, but if you want to harness the wind
play this again.
to destroy things, then I think you'll have fun with Tornado Outbreak. This game gets a 3.5 out of 5 with the title of good.
I remember that Wind Waker clip. I didn't have any save files on my Wind Waker.
Oh, so you had to
get that,
play
I had to play it until I got to the Wind Waker and King Red Lions, and I got that footage just for that little 3-second clip.
What you said about like the camera not being at a 45-degree angle, I wonder if they chose to do that because, like, if you look at the tornado at like a 45-degree angle, it probably doesn't look as, like, it doesn't look good.
The spectacle is not enough?
There's no spectacle. It looks kind of awkward looking down into the funnel, you know? That's my guess.
I guess. If you're going to do that, then just back the camera up then.
Yeah.
I saw somebody in the chat was saying it's Mother's Day as well as Mario Day, and maybe in a different country, but not in America.
Yeah, Mother's Day is like in May. And Espeon is here.
What's up, Espeon? And Sonic Bobomb, thanks for coming to the stream. Being here is better late than never. What we got?
Yeah, he said it's in Australia. It's Mother's Day.
Okay. I want to play that again.
You should just play Katamari instead, to be honest. Katamari is really fun. Hello, Nick Ray.
Thanks for joining. All right, let's get to... I think this has a small cult following. Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg.
I remember seeing commercials for this game, and I was like really excited to play this game back then.
It's a weird game, but it's fun.
I thought it looked really cool.
It's time for the Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg
I love
review
the music in this game too.
for the GameCube. I remember being really excited about this game before it came out when I was young because it was being made by one of my favorite developers, Sonic Team. I went out and rented it, and I was pleased, to say the least. That was about 7 to 9 years ago, and now I recently started playing it again. Is it the same amount of fun a second time around? Well, let's find out. The story is about how evil crows, have taken over the land and filled it with darkness by capturing the elder chickens who watch over the land. Billy is chosen by the chicken god to help recover the land by the evil crows. To do this, Billy is given a magical chicken suit, which enables him to roll giant eggs around and hatch them. This game is a 3D platformer. Scattered throughout each stage are giant eggs you can use to roll around as weapons to defeat the crows, which, for some reason, like to turn into giant cat bat things. You can roll over them, shoot your eggs at them, or bounce on them, which isn't really the best way to defeat them, since your egg can get damaged easily, and hitting them like this can be a tricky thing to do. And, well, I don't really understand it, but the eggs must have an outside rubber coating, because, well, you can bounce on them, and they don't crack open.
Hand me an egg, please.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Okay, now, let's see if it bounces. I think I'll just stick to juggling. What was that for?
I'm sorry.
No, you're not! You!
Humiliation.
Defeating enemies is very simple though. The small enemies take one hit, and the giant enemies take a few more. The larger your egg, the more damage giant enemies take. As you roll around each stage, you will find various fruits scattered throughout, which, when rolled over by your egg, will make your egg grow larger and larger until it is ready to hatch. You'll know it's ready because the egg will start to glow. To hatch an egg, press the R button while looking right at it, and Billy will crow at it. What hatches out of an egg depends on the color and designs of the egg. You can hatch personal upgrades for Billy, as well as animals which can be necessary to your success in certain levels, because each animal companion can usually perform an elemental attack, such as fire, water, ice, you get the idea. Each level has numerous puzzles, all which require a giant egg to complete. Sometimes you'll also need a certain hatched animal to complete puzzles as well, such as putting out flames or freezing lava flows. Each level has 5 different stages, however only the first 2 are required to go on to the next level. The first stage is finding and hatching an elder chicken to make the daylight come out, whereas the second level is finding your way through the stage to a teleporter which takes you to the boss of the level. The last 3 stages will have you scurrying the levels for coins, killing a specific amount of enemies, or making your way to a targeted area of the level. The graphics are good for when it came out. Everything is colorful and vibrant, just the way I expected from Sonic Team. The controls are good for the most part, however it can be tricky trying to move to exact locations while rolling an egg around, usually when the eggs get huge. A huge frustration of the game is sometimes Billy will suddenly walk away from an egg. This happens if you quickly move the control stick in the opposite direction. I think it would have been better if he immediately moved in the direction with the egg that you wanted him to go, instead of having to make a slight 180, which doesn't sound frustrating, but it is when it happens every time you want to quickly make a U-turn. Another frustration is trying to get your egg to roll on rails by itself throughout the levels. You have to push it on top, but not too fast or else it may meet its doom at the end of the track. Pushing it slowly onto the track can be a frustrating challenge. Sometimes you'll be in an area where Billy has to roll down a slope with his egg while maneuvering his way between obstacles that can completely break the egg open in one hit. It's sometimes okay if the egg breaks because you can just get a new one at the bottom of the hill, right? Well, in some cases, no. Like on this part, if the egg breaks on this hill, you will lose a life because there is a huge gap in which you need an egg to jump over to the other side with. What makes it frustrating is that it can be difficult in seeing where to move around so you don't get hit, and the controls for when you roll down a hill can be stiff, and so it can be unnecessary unnecessarily difficult trying to get through these parts of the game. The boss fights are, well, okay, I guess. They're pretty similar in what you have to do to defeat them. There's not much variety and strategy for the boss fights. I'd say they'd be fun for little kids, but for advanced players, you probably won't get a thrill from them. There is a 4-player versus mode, where it's basically a free-for-all, battling friends using eggs and creatures you hatch from them. It's pretty fun, but nothing amazing. Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg can be a fun game, with its very good graphics and controls, a lot of replayability, and unique 3D platforming style. However, it's not a game that you'll just be begging for more. It is fun, but the handful of frustrations within it just decreases the overall enjoyment. I do remember having more fun with it as a kid, and I'm sure that's who this game's main target audience is. It's still not a bad game though, and I think you'd enjoy it enough to play through it, especially if you're a young gamer. This game gets a 3.25 out of 5 with the title of Good.
Yeah, man, I love that kind of art style of games, like in the mid-aughts, I'd say. I don't know. Like 3D platformer games with that kind of art style is just kind of like my jam. Like the that game, what's it called? A Hat in Time. Have you ever played that? Oh, that game is so good.
An exceptional skit.
I think I know where you filmed that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I at least I think so.
Yeah. Lamau, the shirt. Yeah, my internet was out shirt. I've had that shirt since before I started reviewing. And
you still have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, Dean Gavitt, as Awkward Espion says, yes, I can still juggle. I can only juggle 3. I haven't had the patience or time to really do more than that, but yeah, I can juggle 3. Okay.
Oh yeah, this one.
Dead Space Extraction.
This is the only Dead Space game you've played, right?
Yeah.
Caution! This is an M-rated game, so the Magical Chicken insists that viewer discretion is advised. It's time for the Dead Space Extraction review for the Wii. Now before I start, I just have to say that if you are squeamish or uncomfortable about gruesome images, then I recommend you stop watching this video. It's not going to be pretty. Okay, here we go. Now I haven't played the original Dead Space, so there's not going to be any comparisons to it, even though it's not for the Wii anyway. The story starts out with you as a space miner on an alien planet with your crew trying to extract something from the planet. As the game plays through, your crew starts hallucinating and eventually they try to kill you, but you kill them instead. Your character eventually dies, and you start out as a new character with new people in a different place, but the scenario is similar due to defending yourself against fatal enemies. The whole game is a rail shooter through the eyes of your character. You don't have any control on where your character moves or looks around, in other words the camera. All you have control over is your variety of weapons to defend yourself against enemies. At any time during the game, a friend can join in with you and help you kill off enemies, which is a very good thing since the game can become very hard with you just playing alone. You can have up to 4 weapons at your disposal, and every weapon is different enough to give the game strategy in killing off your enemies. You and your friend each have your own sets of ammunition for each weapon, however you will both have the same 4 weapons at the same time instead of mixing and matching different weapons for each of you. Each weapon has 2 different types of firing modes. Holding the Wiimote regularly or twisting it a bit will let you shoot one of 2 different projectiles from the weapon, which is great since each type of projectile from a weapon is good for different scenarios. Now, I did say that you don't have control over your character's movements, but there are some times when you will get to choose a path in the level, which I thought was pretty cool. Throughout the game, there will be items which you can pick up via point and click with the Wiimote, such as new weapons, ammo, and health packs, as well as written and video documents which help play out the story. The thing is, though, it can be quite tricky in picking up the items, because since you don't have control over the camera, you have to be ready at all times to see when items are in your character's viewpoint. Now, there are actually a handful of times throughout the game where you get to control the camera of where your character looks, but only for like 5 seconds. This will usually happen in an area where there are a lot of items to pick up. It's sort of a reward system, kind of, because the game will allow you to do this when you have just defeated a hard wave of enemies, or vice versa when you're about to fight like crazy, so it lets you stock up on supplies. The graphics are excellent. Of course, there's no comparison to Dead Space 1, but I still think it looks great. The environments are detailed and not blocky, and in a lot of areas, really gross as well, which just adds to the ambience of it all. I will say that a lot of the game, Well, the majority is very dark, so much so that I think you'll want to turn the brightness up a bit on your TV before you play. The controls are virtually perfect. Pointing and shooting is really all you do. The thing that gets on my nerves is that sometimes you won't pick up an item due to having to point and press the A button right on the target. It gives you very little leeway when trying to pick up an item, which can become annoying. The motion controls are used very little, but they work when needed. You'll shake the Wiimote when in certain dark areas to light up the room some, and you'll also shake the Wiimote when trying to knock enemies off of you. You can also shake the nunchuck to perform melee attacks when in a desperate situation, or when you need to knock down fragile walls. The voice acting was terrific. It really helped with the story and the atmosphere of the game. Thing is though, I'm not sure why, but it seemed like every character that talked had a different accent. Not complaining, just thought it was unique. Probably the most annoying thing about the game is the reticle. It's just too large for the game. Now it does display good information, like what type of weapon you have out and how you're shooting it, but it gets in the way too often and limits your controlled viewing window a lot, and it doesn't help when there are two of them on the screen. Now there aren't really any glitches in the game, except for this one, and it's a huge glitch. We were supposed to kill all the enemies in this area to move on through the level, but this one enemy went behind this structure and didn't come back out, even though it continued to attack us like it wasn't behind the structure. My girlfriend and I tried everything we could to hit it or lure it back out, but we couldn't, so we restarted the game. Problem with that is that the game is on an autosave system, and so we had to backtrack about 1 to 2 hours of gameplay.
Dang.
Frustrating? You betcha! The boss fights are few, but they sure can be difficult.
Oh, wow.
We were on the
That looks
lowest
really good.
difficulty, and it took us like 10 tries to beat this boss. Why it took so long was because we didn't have the best weapon for this boss fight, and the game can be either unclear on how to defeat it, unlike Zelda games where most of the boss fights are way too simple on how to beat them, or it doesn't really tell you what to do at all. There's a challenge mode where you can play certain levels for the highest score, and bonus material which can be obtained by completing levels throughout the game. Dead Space Extraction is a great game. Anytime co-op mode is a great feature, excellent graphics, nearly perfect controls, a great story, and terrific voice acting make this game very fun to play. However, there are some parts where the difficulty can be excruciating, namely some of the boss fights. The reticle can get really annoying because of its large size, especially when there are two on screen. The camera can be too shaky a lot of the time, which can make it really difficult trying to pick up items as well as trying to shoot enemies. And that huge glitch, which I'm gonna guess is just because of bad luck, really put us in a bad mood. Overall though, it is a really fun rail shooter and can be quite scary at times too, which just makes it better for me, and it's even more fun when playing with a friend. This game gets a 4 out of 5 with the title of Awesome.
I really need to play the original Dead Space. I've heard it's so good.
The first Dead Space is like RE4 in space. Rodrigo Noel. I don't know if I've ever seen you in this chat before, but welcome to the stream. I don't know if you've been in the past streams before, but welcome. Is the magical chicken still alive? Yes, he's just hibernating right now, as all chickens do.
Is he at Mom's and Dad's place or here?
He's here.
Oh, okay. Did you ever get complaints from parents for your M-rated reviews, despite the magical chicken warning?
No. No. I do know that there were 2 or 3 of my subscribers who were parents who would watch my reviews with their kids. So I'm assuming they did not watch the M-rated ones. I mean, that's fine. They're so few and far between anyway. That soft locked is why forced autosave is a mistake. Yep.
Have you ever heard of any other people having that problem with the soft lock?
For that game?
Yeah.
No. Would I say Dead Space Extraction is supposed to be a survivor horror game? No. I wouldn't say survivor. I think it's just an on-rails horror game. Well, like, sci-fi horror.
Like Typing of the Dead. I really want to play that.
Yeah.
That looks like a lot of fun.
Alright, Super Monkey Ball.
It's time for the Super Monkey Ball review for the GameCube. Just like Pikmin 2, and I don't know why, but this was quite a hard game to find in stores. I've been wanting to review
Your
the
audio
first
sounds
Super
a
Monkey
lot
Ball
better.
game for quite
Did
some
you get a new
time,
mic
but it
for
seemed
this
like I
review?
could only find every single other Super Monkey Ball game except for the original in
I don't
stores.
remember.
And yes, I know I could have bought it online instantly, but like I said in my Pikmin 2 review, it's kind of like a game for me to find a specific game in stores. So anyway, I finally found it, so let's get to the review. This is going to be a short review, since, well, there's not really much to talk about. Super Monkey Ball is an
think
updated
so.
port of Sega's arcade game, Monkey Ball.
Either
I've
that
never
or
played
I
the arcade
upgraded
game,
the,
so I won't be
XL
comparing the
arcade.
arcade version to the port. The gameplay is the same throughout the vast majority of the game. The main game is about guiding one of 4 monkeys to choose from, all of who reside in their own sphere, along a variety of platforms, each with their own unique paths and puzzles, to a ribbon goal somewhere on the field. The catch is, you don't control the monkey, you control the platforms. This makes for a unique way of guiding the monkey, since you have to use more caution since you can't really stop on a dime and you can't turn instantly like if you did control the monkey. It's a very fun, addicting game, but it can become really frustrating because of the precision needed for some levels. There are 3 sets of stages, beginner, advanced, and expert. The beginning stages are, of course, a piece of cake. Advanced can bring a challenge, and expert can drive you crazy. Each stage has a time limit, and if you don't get to the goal in time, you have to start the level over. If you fall off the platforms, you have to start over as well. Now, the beginning stages of the advanced set of stages are just the first 10 levels of the beginner set of levels, but with more challenging factors to make it more difficult. The same thing goes with the expert set of levels. The first stages are just the beginning and advanced levels, but with more difficult factors to make expert mode more challenging. I say all this because I don't really like this. I would have liked it better to have completely new stages, instead of more challenging recycled levels. Each stage has a bunch of bananas. Get it? Get it? Bunch of bananas? Whatever. These bananas are not necessary for you to pick up, however, if you obtain 100 of them, you'll gain an extra life. You only start out with 3 lives, and since the levels can become brutally hard, it's a good idea to try to get as many bananas as you can. However, depending on the level, acquiring bananas can actually turn out to be fatal for you, since some bananas are very difficult to get. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation. Bananas give you life, however trying to obtain certain bananas can prove to be fatal. The level designs are very creative, and the advanced and expert levels will keep you on your toes, trying very hard to guide the monkey to the goal. However, believe me, you will become very frustrated with the game due to its high difficulty in the later levels. The graphics are fun and cartoony, with rich colors and nice textures for the time of the release. The controls are very simple, and I'd have to say they're perfect as well. The only thing you'll do is move the stages with the analog stick and press the A button to zoom in and out of your mini-map at the bottom right corner of the screen. That's it. Simple and perfect. However, that doesn't mean you still won't become frustrated with the higher levels. Thing is, once you start tilting the levels in any direction, it is near impossible to get the monkey to stop moving. It seems like he or she will constantly move, even if it's at 1 foot per hour. This can make the game frustrating because you think the monkey has stopped, but then you see that he suddenly starts to fall off the platform, and then you freak out and say, "What the heck? I thought he was stopped," while trying to recover, but he falls off the platform. So anyway, that's why it can get really frustrating, because it's virtually impossible to get the monkey to stop moving. Each time you complete a whole set of levels, depending on the difficulty, you will receive a number of points.
I would
You
love
can use
to
these points to
design a
purchase
game
special
like
minigames.
this.
Yeah.
Some of the minigames are already available to you, and they can be quite fun as well. My friends and my favorite minigame was this one. You get to roll your monkey down a ramp and launch him or her off, and then glide them over to a platform which can actually be more difficult than it looks, and whichever point sector your monkey stays on, that's how many points you get, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. There are some variable factors that play into the scenario, which just makes the game more strategic and fun. Super Monkey Ball is a great game. Very good graphics, simple yet perfect controls, great and challenging level designs, really good music that enhances the challenging atmosphere, and a nice selection of fun multiplayer minigames. However, I found that trying to control the monkey can become frustrating due to the fact that it is nearly impossible to make him or her completely stop moving, and I didn't like that the levels were recycled when playing on a harder difficulty, just with new variables that made the levels more challenging. Bottom line, I would have liked completely new levels for the harder difficulties. Overall though, it's a really fun game that can be either very addicting or frustrating to certain people, or both. I do recommend playing it. It is a really fun game. Barrels are just not how
Have a second
level.
Get it?
Wow.
This game gets a 4 out of 5. The title of awesome.
You know, watching these GameCube reviews.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Nice.
Forgot that was the first review.
Yeah.
Watching all these GameCube reviews, it just makes me want to play them again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even care about ports on the Switch. I'll just play the original.
I remember the first time I watched that review was, it was either, I think it was my Boston, like my high school Boston field trip, or not field trip, but like Boston trip basically. You know, we spent like a week in Boston, And it was at the hotel we were staying at. Like, we were checking out, and the computer was right there. So I just, like, logged in and just watched your review. Just right there. Also, do you know anything about the Yakuza game series?
I don't know anything.
The person who made that series made Super Monkey Ball first. And, like, if you see pictures of him, like, back when he was developing Super Monkey Ball, he just looks like, you know, your typical, like, Japanese nerd kind of guy. But as the years went along and he was developing the Yakuza series, he started, like, nowadays he actually looks like a Yakuza gang member. It's really weird. It's just like a huge transformation. It's really funny.
Somebody said, if I can find it. Where'd it go? Dean got another fun fact. The game Monkey Ball uses the same engine as F-Zero GX.
Wow.
So that's really interesting. Shout out to... He's not called the unusual suspect anymore.
I think he's called Suspect Green now.
Shout out to him for that really cool outro.
Yeah. He still makes videos.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Alright, let's get on to Star Fox Assault.
It's time for the Star Fox Assault review for the GameCube. Here's the game I'm assuming that most people thought Star Fox Adventures would be, a true sequel to the style of Star Fox 64. However, there's more in this game than dogfights in the Sea of Stars, which some people like and some don't, so let's take a look. The story is about how alien lifeforms called Aporoids are taking over organic bodies and machines all throughout space, and it's up to Fox and his crew to stop them. Throughout the game, you will play as Fox in various missions, which include flying around and blasting enemies in your R-Wing, rolling around on the surface in one of my brother's favorite, if not the favorite, final smash attack, a Landmaster. Stupid Falco, so cheap with his cheap Landmaster, virtually impossible to dodge on almost every stage. Anyway, and you'll also play as Fox in a third-person shooter view as he runs through levels on the ground. Each style of playing has its ups and downs, but for the vast majority, flying in your R-Wing is by far the best. The controls for flying are perfect, and that's one of the reasons the flying stages are the best. The controls for the Landmaster and while running on the ground can be very annoying and frustrating. It's hard to turn for the latter two, and aiming is a pain. Plus, there's no lock-on for either the Landmaster or Fox's guns, which makes trying to kill off enemies really frustrating to do. You'll use the control stick to move and the C-stick to look around while in both ground modes. It's not impossible to figure out, but the first few types of these missions will try your patience. The flying stages are so much fun though, especially the rare non-railed missions. So many enemies to blow up, upgrades for your blaster, and the action rarely stops. Too bad there aren't enough of them, as there are more ground levels than there are dogfights. The Landmaster and ground levels are non-linear. You'll go around and shoot off enemies and complete missions such as, well, killing off a number of specific enemies or trying to take down energy shields. With the ground levels, you'll find various weapons which will help take down more powerful enemies than others. There are a couple of times where you will shoot down enemies while riding on the wing of an R-Wing, which is pretty cool, and I would have liked it better if this was implemented more in the game. The graphics are pretty good. Nothing too special, but not bad either. The animations were okay, however I think the animation in Star Fox Adventures was better. The voice acting was good for the most part, however I think Fox could have been a little bit more enthusiastic. There is one thing. For each mission, the crew will tell you the objective at the beginning of the level, and then they will tell you what to do again like 5 to 15 seconds later, and again, and again, and again!
Wow.
Can you see how annoying this can get?
Alright,
Oh.
for the next light, you're gonna want to take a right.
Oh, I know where this is too. Yeah.
You'll take a right at the next light.
I know, I heard you.
When you see the stoplight, you're gonna want to take a right.
I know. You just told me that.
If you see a stoplight, you can take a right.
What are you doing? What are you doing? I know.
There'll be a right turn at the
Hey,
stoplight.
I know.
When you get to this intersection, there'll be a right.
What are you doing? I know to go right. Here's the intersection. I know to go right. I'm gonna go right. You don't have to tell me each single time. I'm gonna turn right.
Sweetie,
What?
you just missed our turn.
The difficulty can be set to easy, medium, or hard. Easy is
I want to pause. I told her that we might have to do multiple takes because I was trying to time it so we'd get a green light, and we got it first take.
Oh, wow,
that
really?
That was the only take we did, and it was perfect.
That was like perfect timing.
It was kind of weird to see that road in that intersection because it's all updated now.
Yeah.
It's wider and everything, but
Yeah.
that's what it used to look like.
Really easy, so I only recommend it to younger players. However, because the controls of the two ground levels can be so frustrating, medium and hard difficulty can turn into evil and death modes. Another disappointment is the length of the game. I beat it in just over 3 hours. That's right, 3 hours. That is
Really?
way too short for this type of game. However, because there are achievements you can obtain by going back to certain levels, this gives the game replayability. The boss fights were way too easy, except for the very last one. All the others, though, were a cakewalk, which was disappointing. However, they are more difficult on a higher difficulty, of course. Hooray for logic! There's a 4-player multiplayer mode, which, even though you can play in any of the 3 style modes, it's just not that fun for some reason. Even the dogfights got dull. There weren't enough variables to make versus mode interesting, let alone exciting. Star Fox Assault is a pretty good game. Even though the controls for the majority of the game can be annoying and frustrating, it isn't impossible to get used to them, and the action in each level rarely ceases. The graphics and replayability are nice as well. The game could have been much longer though, and it would have been better, in my opinion, if there were more R-Wing stages, because that's the bulk of the fun you get out of this game, and the multiplayer mode wasn't that exciting. It needed to have something to boost the atmosphere of the game. Overall though, it still is a good game with a pretty good story as well. If you didn't like Star Fox Adventures because you wanted that game to be the style of Star Fox 64, I think you'll have a pretty fun time with this game. This game gets a 3.5 out of 5, with the title of good.
I just like the music, but I think I'll skip to the next one
Yeah.
each time.
But did you know you have to take a right at that light?
That was fun. The if it gets re-released, if ever, the only thing they really need to do is just update the clunky controls for the ground game and the tank. Everything else was pretty much fine. Oh, well, also the campaign's super short, but...
Why do so many people forget about this game? It was really good. Also, again, rip Star Fox. Seriously, Nintendo, bring it back. Angry face. Yeah, I mean, well, it's kind of sad. They did bring it back, and no one liked the new game, so they're probably not gonna try it again for a while, I'm sure.
Pugphone, thanks for joining the stream. I don't know if you've been to the other streams in the past, but I think this is the first time I've seen you in the chat. So welcome. Crazy to see this. Started watching you in 4th grade or so, and now I'm almost done with college. Crazy how time flies. Well, thank you for being a loyal subscriber. I appreciate it, yes. And I think I'm coming up on year 15.
Oh, wow.
I think, because I think my my Brawl review, it said it's like 14 years old.
Yeah.
So, crazy.
In 2009, so yeah, it'd be 15 years coming up. Red Toa, funny how you mentioned Yakuza because my buddies have tried to get me into the series. I own all of them except the most recent titles because they're getting harder to find. Yeah, well, I've never played any of them. My sister, or our sister, she plays, I know she plays a few of them. She's really into that series.
The car that we were in for that skit was very loud. But it was the only vehicle we had at the time. I mean, it was hers. It wasn't even mine. I didn't have a car until we got married, but...
It was that black car, right?
It was the black car,
yeah.
Yeah, and it's just generally loud. It wasn't anything wrong with it. So I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear. So after we did the skit...
Worked pretty well.
I had to, like, listen to it immediately because I was like, I don't know if this is going to work or not. So, but it worked.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to Okami. One of our sister's favorite games.
It's time for the Okami review for the Wii. Okami was originally released on the PS2 in 2006 and later ported to the Wii despite the original developers of the game closing in 2008. Okami is all about ancient Japanese polytheism. There are many gods throughout the game, including yourself, a wolf god named Amaterasu. The land has fallen into a cursed darkness, and it's up to your wolfy deity self to save it. In the beginning of the game, you'll gain a bug-type partner, who insists not be calling a bug. He is your guide and communicator, actually, to everyone you talk to in the game. This game has a Zelda-esque theme to it. You will traverse through the wilderness, talk to characters to gain information on what to do next, as well as side quests, navigate through temples and dungeon-like areas, collect items, and defeat giant bosses. This game is very large in area, with many things to do. The most noticeable feature of the game is that you get to use your godly art skills. What I mean is, Amaterasu has the ability to basically stop the flow of time to use her celestial brush to either create or destroy. Amaterasu, or Ami for short, has a gauge in the form of ink bottles. As long as she has some ink, you can take out your celestial brush at any time during the game. You can use this brush to bring back life to trees, remove a part of the curse from a certain place, and even create lily pads in the water to act as platforms. There are many other techniques Ami can pull off, however not all of them are used to purify or create. Whenever you are in battle, it's a good idea to, at the right time of course, use the celestial brush against your enemies. You can do this by making a quick slash on the enemy to deal damage. You can perform other techniques as well to fight off your enemies. Battling with a celestial brush is not the main method of fighting. Ami has two types of weapons, used with the motion sensor of the Wiimote and the Z button on the nunchuck. Ami will acquire new weapons later throughout the game, but the point is that you will use these weapons as your primary fighting method. You can mix and match weapons to be your primary and secondary. Doing this will sometimes give you options to have a shield for defense. Make sure you test out which weapons should be primary and secondary to fit your best fighting style. The graphics are unique and beautiful. It's cel-shaded, but more of a rough cel-shaded style of graphics. Throughout the game, you are to find specific trees to bring back to life, and when you do this, the area becomes enriched with life, which is very pleasing to watch, as the style of graphics makes all the colors pop with vibrancy. The controls are great for the most part. You'll use the Wiimote nunchuck combo as you play, using the buttons and motion controls throughout the game. Using the celestial brush is fun, but it can become extremely frustrating at times. To draw something, you have to hold down the B button, and using your Wiimote like a paintbrush, draw whatever it is you want on the screen. However, I'd say up to about 50% of the time you try to draw something, the game will not recognize your strokes, and you'll have to keep on trying until you get it right. But it can become so ridiculous because you know that you drew it correctly, but still the game won't accept it.
That one time you
Now the weird thing
drew an
is,
E,
it seems
not
like
a
sometimes the
circle.
game is bipolar when it comes to accepting your drawings. Sometimes I'll be hasty in my drawings, and they'll almost look like nothing I was supposed to draw, but the game will accept it anyway. However, other times I'll be hasty and the game won't accept them. It's like, make up your freaking mind. The worst part is being very patient with the game and carefully drawing what you need to, but the game still won't accept it. Very, very aggravating. Another annoyance is dodging with the nunchuck. It's a simple concept, but it just doesn't work well. You can dodge by jerking the nunchuck to the right, left, or back, and Ami is supposed to jump out of the way in
that's-
whichever direction
yeah,
you
that's
tried to
awkward.
lead her in. However, for me, she usually jumped in a different direction, I'd say about 90% of the time. So because of that, I rarely use this dodge technique. Now, you might infer that this seemingly tirade against the controls would make it sound like the controls are terrible, but they're not. They do work for moving around and interacting with people. It's just that the celestial brushstrokes can become frustrating to pull off, but they work for the majority of the time. The only real negative control method was dodging with the nunchuck. There are a lot of side quests in this game, which, if you know me well enough, is a joy to me. I love side quests, and this game had many to complete. The voice acting is, well, not really voice acting at all. Well, it is technically. People did voice the characters, however the developers took snippets of the script and scrambled them up, which gave us this. It's not a horrible choice, but it can become annoying. The boss fights were fun and strategic. You'll have to use specific brush techniques to defeat bosses, but don't think they won't put up a fight. Probably the biggest downside for me is the fighting. It can become very shallow and monotonous. Even though you gain XP from fights, I actually tried to stay away from the optional battles for the most part. It was fun in the beginning, but after a while, I usually just ran past them. Okami is a great game. Beautiful graphics, great controls, a nice large world to explore, many side quests, great boss fights, and seeking out and learning new brush techniques was very fun. However, sometimes the game became a bit dull due to the monotonous fighting. The game would sometimes give you a hard time by not registering your brushstrokes, even when you would be very patient with your art skills, and I did not like the save system. You would have to find a special mirror scattered throughout the world to save your progress, which would sometimes become a pain to find. Overall, though, it still is a great game. If you like the Zelda formula, then you should pick up a controller and give Okami a go. This game gets a 4.25 out of 5 with the title of Awesome.
I never completed it.
It's a long game, isn't it?
Yeah. And I don't know, I just kind of got burned out. Oh, one of my favorite skits is in this one.
I don't remember the skit. I remember playing this with you, Lizzie, and Espion.
Yeah.
That was really fun.
Have I played Okamiden?
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 The sequel on the DS?
No. Like I just said, I haven't even completed the first one.
I remember watching Chugga Conroy play Okami. I watched that whole Let's Play.
Oh yeah. I never really got into Let's Plays all that much, like watching them. There were very few that I would actually watch. Like games that I knew I would like never play, but I was still interested in.
I used to watch a lot of Let's Plays a long time ago, but nowadays it's like very few games I will watch. Like it'll be like a game that I'm interested to see what's in it, but I don't necessarily want to play it. And especially if it's like a shorter Let's Play, so I don't have to watch like a huge series, you know.
Mm-hmm.
If I can just watch like a few hours of someone playing through the whole game, then that's fine.
Really, the only time I watch Let's Plays is if I use them like as walkthroughs for stuff. But I don't know if I've ever watched a full entire Let's Play of any game.
Really?
Mm-mm. Nick Ray, thanks to you, I own this for PS2, Wii, and PS4. Truly beautiful game. Oh, well, you're welcome. I'm doing a Let's Play of Strong Bads.
Cool game for attractive people. I remember you were doing a review on that series. I had never heard of the Strong Bad series before watching that review.
I'm wondering if the age difference between you and me is maybe a factor in why we watched Let's Plays.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I feel like I'm pretty sure Chugga is near your age group.
He's between our ages, actually. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Because I remember when I started not really watching like cartoons anymore, you guys were still watching them. Like Billy and Mandy was one of them, even though I do like Billy and Mandy. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends was one I just didn't really care for. There were a few others, but I'm wondering if it kind of a similar thing going on there between that and like Let's Players.
Yeah, I guess so. Plus, the fact that me and my sister, you know, we grew up watching you play video games, so like just watching Let's Plays, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Oh yeah, not for me though. I'd go over to a friend's house and I wanted to play.
Yeah, although I think I remember the time where like I stopped caring about like watching, especially you play a game, and I just want to play it myself. Is when you got Breath of the Wild for the first time, and I had seen quite a lot of gameplay previews of that game before it came out, and I was like, okay, you gotta go here, and then you know, you gotta keep doing this, and like, you know, I was saying that while watching you play, and it was just kind of frustrating to watch you play because you're missing out on so many things that I just wanted to play it myself. And that now I'd rather just play a game than watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I missed out on. I eventually got to the things that you were probably thinking.
Yeah, but it's like the pace that you were going at was just like frustrating to me.
I like my own pace. Like with Breath of the Wild, I would research so many things of the game before its release, so I knew what was going to happen. But with Tears of the Kingdom, I researched so little
Yeah.
into it. I just want to go in blindly, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, same. I think I watched too many previews of Breath of the Wild before I played it. I kind of regret that. So that I was pretty much the same with you with Tears of the Kingdom.
Mm.
Yeah, as a younger brother, I 100% agree with Red Toa. Watching an older sibling play most of our games turned me into a fan of Let's Plays. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I totally understand it, but I never experienced that. So watching a Let's Player, I would rather just play the game.
I don't really watch Chugga too much. Like I played, or I didn't play. I watched his series about Sticker Star. He did like a mini series where he kind of played through the whole game, but in a shorter edited version of it, just to show everyone like how bad that game is.
Oh.
I watched that thing, but I don't really watch his videos anymore. I mostly watch, I don't know if you've heard of him, Vinny from Vine Sauce.
Some.
Yeah, if there's ever a game I want to watch a Let's Play of, I'll watch it from him because he's really funny.
If you want a good Let's Player or walkthrough series, I think his name is Urban Cowboy.
I've never heard of him.
He does all the Dark Souls and Elden Ring, like 100%.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's get to the next one. Gauntlet Dark Legacy. I got some heat for this one too, because I didn't really get to experience the original Gauntlet.
Oh, right.
And so I was like, this review is from the perspective of somebody who doesn't have the original in mind. And
I think I seem to remember there was a game. It might have been a Gauntlet game. It might have been like a re-release on GameCube. I'm pretty sure it had like pixel graphics. It looked almost like an Atari game. And we I guess you rented it.
Really?
Yeah. It was like, it looked really old school, and we played it on the GameCube. But for like one day, and then never again.
It could not have been Gauntlet. There's no way.
No, it looked like it, like some kind of dungeon crawling game.
I'll have to
like
think
with
about
pixel
that one.
graphics.
I'll have to think about that.
All right, well, let's get into this one.
It's time for the Gauntlet Dark Legacy review for the GameCube. Dark Legacy, according to Wikipedia, is an expansion of the game Gauntlet Legends for the N64, which is a sequel to the original Gauntlet title back on the arcade. I have played the original Gauntlet before, and I do remember having some fun with that game. However, I'm sure I didn't experience its full potential since I only played with one other player, and the game is made for a full 4-player co-op experience. But with Dark Legacy, I have, as well as my 2 siblings and my fiancée Lizzie. This is an action hack-and-slash game. You and up to 3 other players will traverse through areas defeating evil. There are many different characters you can choose from, such as melee combatants, magic users, and agile archers. You will start out with different stats depending on which character you choose, and each type of character has a primary stat than the others, like the warrior has more strength and the archer has more speed. I like being a speed character, while Spunky, Red, and Lizzie like being damage-based. And we were a good team, for we are the mightiest warriors in the land. None may challenge our supreme skill, for if any do, they are sure to meet their inevitable doom. For we are fearless, mighty, and superb. Now you will all at once step through a portal to a level where the whole point is to fight, stay alive, and find the portal at the end of the level. Each level is a part of a set. What I mean is, in this area right here are 5 levels, and you must complete in order levels 1 through 5. The last level has a boss fight at the end. The whole story is about how a demon has escaped imprisonment, and it's up to you and your team to find the runestones scattered throughout the levels to defeat the demon. Throughout specific levels, you will find certain items you will need to collect to advance to more levels. Instead of just defeating the boss and going on to a new set of levels, you will most likely have to go back to previous levels and collect these items. This, to me, is pseudo-replayability. It's replayability in the sense that, yes, you do get to go back and replay the levels, however, you are forced to do this if you want to complete the game. It's bittersweet to me, but more bitter because 1, it can be a pain trying to find the specific items, and 2, well, the gameplay can be very, very frustrating. The camera is basically fixed. The only way you can manipulate it is if one or multiple characters spread out from each other, however, the camera will only stretch out so far. That's one annoying annoyance. The biggest annoyance is the fact that you can't go through another player. You are not transparent to one another, and since there are many obstacles and traps that are practically everywhere, maneuvering around the level can become extremely frustrating. Now maybe the developers were going for a realistic physics sense, or maybe they were just rushing the game, or maybe both. It doesn't matter. The point is that not being able to walk or run through another character gives the game a superfluous challenge. Now if you're just playing by yourself, or maybe even one other person, this annoyance would be, well, less annoying. However, playing with 3 other people gives you very little elbow room, which just decreases the overall fun of the game. Now before I played this game, I thought that the archer would be the only one with the ranged attack. Nope! All the characters have ranged attacks. Well, come to think of it, I guess it would make sense for the magic user to have ranged attacks as well. But anyway, the only difference is that the archer is quicker with his attacks by about 2 to 3 times than the other character's ranged attacks. This is again bittersweet for me. Sweet because everyone has 2 types of attacks, bitter because for me, it just decreases the variety of gameplay. It would have been nice if someone was the dedicated tank, dedicated damage dealer, and so forth. But it really doesn't and or can't work like that in this game, since enemies don't necessarily attack the first character they see. Traps, traps, traps. Man, are there a lot of traps in this game. And what's worse is that it can be very hard to avoid them. Since you can't walk or run through other characters, you can get stuck right on a trap, which just sucks. Okay, the game is not horrible. I know I've been basically saying everything is negative about the game, but please don't think that. The game is fun. It's just that when you have a bunch of annoyances at once, they can build up and just make you want to pull out your hair and Falcon Punch Hupo.
Yes!
For one, it takes a lot for this game to become boring, and by that I mean when you play it for hours on end without a break. It's a fast-paced game that can be rewarding. There are items you can collect throughout the levels, as I said before, and most items are beneficial to you in your fighting. At the end of each level, your experience, collected items, and gold are tallied up. Every time you gain a level, you are rewarded with attribute points. You can buy items with your gold you picked up in the previous levels. Items include food for health, points for more stat increases, and special temporary weapons such as a spread shot for your ranged attack or temporary invincibility. It was nice having these temporary special weapons. It really added to the fun factor of the game. Another great addition to the fun factor was each character's own special attacks. You couldn't pull them off at any time you wanted. You would have to wait until a gauge for your character was filled up. They sure were fun to perform though, and what made it better was that there was more than one special move for each character. The graphics are very poor. This looks like a PS1 game. Granted, the game is an expansion of an N64 game, but come on. You'd think the developers could make it look just a little better. This is one of the reasons why I think the game was rushed. The controls are great though. I will say, however, it was a little confusing for a while after we started playing on how we were supposed to use our special items. You're supposed to press the right and left buttons on the directional pad to switch between items and then press up to actually put the item into effect. However, the game lags about a quarter to a half a second every time you press the up button. We didn't realize it did this for a while, and so we were, of course, confused on how we were supposed to use special items. We even looked in the manual to see how we were supposed to do it, and it does say to use the directional pad, but we didn't know the game lagged, which threw us off. This is still annoying even when you know that it lags, because if you need to use an item immediately, good luck, you might be dead before you're able to use it. The voice acting is actually pretty funny. It's not funny because it's supposed to make you laugh, it's funny because it's like the developers took it too far and tried to make it serious sounding, which, in turn, kind of did the opposite.
Storm then released his minions upon the lands, and scattered the runestones across the 8 realms, so that they might never again be assembled and used against him. No one has dared try. Until now.
The music was pretty good. Some levels really put you in the fighting mood, while others were just okay. One thing I didn't like was that if you or a character died in a level, the remaining characters had to finish the level in order for the dead character or characters to play again. If all characters died, you would have to restart the whole level. The boss fights were fun, but man were they difficult. Now I love a challenge, but sometimes it just felt like the game was just cheap with its attacks. It took us many tries to defeat some of these bosses. Listen, if you play this game, make sure you stock up on armor and health, especially before fighting a boss. We learned the hard way. Gauntlet Dark Legacy is a pretty good game. Controls are great for the most part, cool attacks that are fun to pull off, a nice assortment of special items and attacks, and playing co-op is more fun than playing solo. However, playing co-op does have its share of problems, mainly that since the camera is basically fixed and that there are so many obstacles and traps in every level, it can be such a pain to move around. The graphics are way outdated, even for the time of its release. I didn't like the death system. Having to go back to levels and search for specific items to let you progress through the game was a pain, and the boss fights can be really hard. Overall though, it's still not a bad game, and if you're looking for a local 4-player co-op other than 4 Swords, then I suggest you try this game out. This game gets a 3.25 out of 5, the title of good. Oh yes, and Merry Christmas.
This is a Christmas.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we played that game during Christmas break.
Yep. Skyward Sword. This is one game I would go back and redo for the score.
10 minutes? Wow.
Yep.
This is a huge review. Hey guys, I just want to come by and say hi because I'm at work today. Anyways, I hope you'll have a good afternoon. Bye. Thanks, Bolt Mouse. You have fun at work.
Mr. Toad the Gamer, poor Hupo. Poor Hupo, nothing. He sucks. Is Lizzie still with you? Yep. Still going strong. Alright.
Yeah, the voice acting is a little hammy, but I don't think it's bad.
Alright. This is a long one. Let's get into it.
It's time for the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword review for the Wii. I have been wanting to play this game ever since, well, probably when the rumors about a sequel to Twilight Princess first started appearing on the internet. Then, when I saw the trailer at E3, I was actually surprised at myself for not being as excited as I thought I would be, and you'll see why in a bit. This game, as of this date, has no prequel. According to the official Zelda timeline, this is the beginning of the Zelda universe, so to speak, and only by playing it and other Zelda titles can you fully understand the importance of this game. Unlike any other Zelda game, Skyward Sword first starts out in the sky. Link, Zelda, and a bunch of other people live on a giant floating rock called Skyloft, with other small landmasses surrounding them at a distance that ranges from close to far away. This is not a typical Zelda game in a handful of ways, and one of the most noticeable differences is that Link starts out with not 3, but 6 hearts in the beginning of the game. I wasn't sure how I felt about this at first, but I learned to like it for a reason I will state later in the review. Another noticeable difference is that Zelda is not a princess, but one of Skyloft's villagers and childhood friend of Link. So as to not spoil anything, I won't say anything else crucial to the story. When you think of Zelda, you might think of Link riding on his horse, or in some cases, a boat or train. However, in this game, Link rides on his giant bird companion and flies through the sky. To control the bird, you will point the Wiimote horizontally and tilt it in whichever direction you want to maneuver in. You can also jerk the Wiimote up to gain altitude, and these controls all work very well. Now, I did say that the game isn't a typical Zelda game in some ways, but for the overall majority of gameplay, it is. You'll fight your way through dungeons, solve puzzles, and defeat giant bosses. To complete all this, you will have to, as you probably know, use your sword. This game requires the Wii Motion Plus accessory, or the Wii Remote Plus. Nintendo takes full advantage of their gadget in this game. Your swings are one-to-one with Link, meaning whichever way you swing, twist, or jab your Wiimote, Link will pull off the same exact move with his sword on screen. The controls are similar to Twilight Princess, that is, with swinging your sword around, but it's way more precise. With Twilight Princess, you could just swing the Wiimote almost any way you wanted, and Link would slice and dice the enemies, but with Skyward Sword, you will get nowhere if you try to just flail the Wiimote. This is because Nintendo made it so that almost every enemy you fight will try to block your attacks, and they do most of the time. You have to wait for a clear opening, or try and knock back the enemies with a parry from your shield to get a shot in. To parry an attack, you'll have to jerk the nunchuck forward and hold it up in front of you like you would with a real shield. This control scheme works almost too well, and I say this because I think the nunchuck is a little oversensitive, as I would take out my shield on accident one too many times for it to not become a small annoyance. A cool feature that I've only seen in a couple of other Zelda titles is that Link can shoot huge discs of energy from his sword. The way to do this is, hold up the Wiimote so that it's pointed relatively straight up, and hold it there for about 2 to 3 seconds. On screen, Link will point his sword skyward and charge it up. Once it's charged, Link will send out a disc of energy towards his target the next time you swing his sword. The charge is only good for one disc at a time, so you can't be super cheap with your attacks, but it's another feature Skyward Sword has that just makes me like the game even more. With past Zelda games, I felt that the overall challenge factor of the game was just a little too under par. However, with Skyward Sword, that definitely isn't the case. This game can get quite challenging, especially in a certain later part of the game, which, I have to say, almost became frustratingly difficult. The part I'm speaking about isn't difficult due to bad controls, bad level design, or anything like that. It's just difficult because it is. The overall challenge of the game is higher than
What-
previous Zelda games,
what
which I
part of the game
appreciate,
is
and I
that you're
think
talking
Nintendo
about?
knew the
It's
challenge
very
factor would
near
be
the
higher
end.
in this game, and therefore
You're
surprising
escaping
to
a
fans
bunch
of the
of,
series, which is
like,
why they start
zombie,
Link out with 6 hearts
goblins.
instead of the traditional 3.
Oh,
The challenge
yeah,
mostly
that
comes
one.
from having to be precise with your sword swings against enemies and when trying to solve certain puzzles. I have to say, I was a bit skeptical with how well the controls would work when first watching the demos, but after completing the game, I'm not so sure I would want to go back to the traditional button pressing. Another new feature Nintendo added to the game is that Link has a stamina gauge. This makes the game more realistic and also adds to the challenge factor of the game. Link can sprint in this game, which, I have to say, makes it a lot easier and or faster to get around, but you can only sprint as long as you have some energy in your stamina gauge. Throughout each area of the game, you will find small green fruits which, when walked or run over, will fill up the gauge completely. These are really nice to find, as the gauge will start to deplete immediately when Link starts to dash, and you can only dash for about 5 seconds before it runs out. If it does run out, Link will huff and puff, and the only thing you can make him do is walk very slowly until the gauge is fully replenished. The gauge will also start to deplete when you climb on walls, carry heavy items, and when you pull off awesome sword techniques. Just like every other Zelda game, you will acquire special yet familiar items when you play through. Not all are from past Zelda games, like this item called the Beetle. As with every item, you
do
will
you think
use
these
either the
blocks were
pointer
intentionally
controls or the
designed to
motion
look like
controls of the
GameCubes?
Wiimote, or
Yes.
sometimes even both. With the Beetle, as soon as you launch it away from Link, you will be able to control its flight path via the motion sensors in the Wiimote, almost congruent to that of the controls when you fly Link's giant bird. I didn't have a problem with any of the control schemes with any of the items. Now, I've heard that the bomb controls would sometimes give people problems, but I thought they worked just fine. You can set a bomb down next to you, or throw it with a flick of the Wiimote, and now you can even roll a bomb towards your target, a new feature which I really like doing. Link's quite the bowler. There are many side quests in this game, which I of course love. It will take you hours to complete the side quests, which of course just adds to the overall enjoyment of the game. The graphics are, well, unique. Some say it's a cross between The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, and I can agree with that. However, I think my brother said it best when he said that he thinks it's a style all its own. It is beautiful. When you look at something from a distance, it's almost like watercolor and comes into focus more and more as you get closer to it. I have to admit, when I first saw the trailer, I was kind of 50-50 on whether I liked it or not. You have to understand, coming from Twilight Princess, I was expecting realistic graphics like that, and then to see this unique style, it was a bit shocking, and I wasn't really sure what to think of it. However, soon after I started playing, I really started to enjoy the beauty of it, and now I really like it. The controls are basically perfect on one side of the page, and, well, I guess there's only one side to it. What I'm trying to say is, you will have to recalibrate the controls once in a while because they can go haywire. I did like it, however, that there was like a sub-calibration feature, and that was whenever you were in first-person mode with either your sword, a different item, or even just looking around, you could press the down button on the D-pad and the pointer would go back to the middle of the screen, which usually corrected the controls, making it so that you didn't have to go into the menu and pause the game to recalibrate the controls. I'm not saying you won't ever have to go to the menu calibration screen, because you most likely will have to, but this was an excellent feature that I really appreciated. The music is just beautiful. Skyward Sword has a fully orchestrated soundtrack which just adds the uniqueness that I love.
You didn't really talk about the story.
Skyward
at all
Sword also
in
comes
this
with a
game.
second disc
And it's
besides
still
the game
this
itself,
long.
with a
It's
fully
crazy.
orchestrated Zelda compilation soundtrack which is very fun and at times nostalgic to listen to. One thing my siblings and I really liked was that Skyward Sword has quite a lot of Easter eggs that referenced other Zelda games. It was great. We saw and or read references to The Wind Waker, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, even the original Legend of Zelda for the NES. It's just little things like that in a game which just makes you smile. Now, I know I've been basically praising the game left and right, but there were some downsides I found, and that is one, I felt that the game was too linear. I really didn't get a lot of that exploration sense when I get when playing other Zelda games like Twilight Princess, Majora's Mask, or The Wind Waker. Especially The Wind Waker. The game isn't completely linear, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think it offered enough exploration to it. Another downside was that you have all the sky to explore, yet a lot of the floating islands, so to speak, are just rocks with a few enemies on them that you'll probably ignore most of the time, or they're a warp rock, where if you fly through it, you'll get a temporary high boost of speed. Granted, there are some islands with things to do on them, but I felt that there was a lot of unused potential that could have been in the form of side quest islands. The boss fights were not a downside though. It seems like the majority of boss fights in Zelda games are just too easy to me, and I was pleasantly surprised to find the difficulty had been raised in this game. Now, not all of them were that difficult, but most of them were a step up or two from the Wind Waker's and Twilight Princess's boss fights when talking about difficulty. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword is a fantastic game. Great, beautiful graphics, nearly perfect controls, lots of little knickknacks here and there to give the game a lot of charm. The story is quite good, lots of fun side quests, a beautiful score, and the boss fights were fun and challenging. I did find some downsides, which were: 1, it felt like the game was too linear. I felt like there wasn't enough exploration to it, which I have found in past Zelda series. 2, I was kind of disappointed with the lack of things to do on other islands. Yes, there are a handful of islands where you get to do some fun things, but you have all this space and it just seems lacking, which is kind of disappointing. And last but not least, I was pretty disappointed that they didn't allow Link to swing a sword and walk or run around at the same time like he was able to in Twilight Princess. That was actually one of my favorite features in Twilight Princess, and Nintendo either forgot or deliberately did not put that in, which was pretty disappointing. Overall though, it is still an amazing game that every Zelda fan should definitely play. If you're skeptical about the game for any reason, you need not worry. You are in for a real treat. This game gets a 4.75 out of 5 with the title of Epic.
So you would re-review that game?
Yeah, there are certain elements I would be more critical on. One is I said the boss fights were difficult, but some of them were just insanely, stupidly easy and obvious.
Like that the tentacle.
Yeah, the sand ship.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's definitely the worst boss. But the music in one of those boss fights is so good. Do you remember? It was that big automaton thing with the arms.
Oh yeah.
The music in that is, whew, that's so good.
Maybe another thing was, I don't think I was critical enough with the controls. They did work for the most part, but I replayed it about a year ago, and I remember getting really frustrated at times that it just would not work, and I have to recalibrate over and over. And I would try different Wiimotes with the built-in Motion Plus, and it didn't work. The sand ship boss is the worst one, but very close second is the imprisoned himself.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's just boring, and
yeah,
honestly, the design is really stupid.
Yeah. It's definitely not the best Zelda game, but I think it's one of the more underrated ones. From like, I haven't played it in a while, but when I did play it, I thought it was pretty good, and I think people, I guess you could complain that the controls aren't intuitive enough, but like, once you kind of play, when you use the controls the way that they intend you to, they work pretty good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, like everyone complains that, like, you know, the motion controls like don't work properly. They don't, but I don't think that's the case. If you're just like a little more deliberate in your swings, then they work like 99% of the time, maybe 95% of the time.
Right. I think the biggest problem is when you're surrounded by enemies. Well, just even like 2 or 3, you want to kill them as soon as possible. So moving your sword, orienting it to the correct position to do a swipe. If you do it too fast, Link will swipe.
Yeah.
Swing his sword, and it's like, no, I didn't want that. So I kind of feel like if they had incorporated some sort of like holding down a button to actually swing your sword with, that would have helped. And if you let go of it, you're actually just moving it into the right position. That would have helped greatly.
They probably want it to be more intuitive though. Like that, you know, people just want to swing. You know, if you have to press a button in order to swing, that probably wouldn't have felt as good.
I would have preferred that over intuitiveness. Anyway, I have not played the HD version.
I thought you did.
I just feel like there's no need. No.
Okay. I heard the HD version is actually pretty good. Did the Wii Motion Plus even do anything? Oh yeah. I highly doubt you could have ever developed this game without it.
Oh yeah.
The motion controls in the base Wiimote were very like the technology was just not nearly
Not
as
there.
advanced without the Plus.
Come here. Mr. Toad the Gamer, I kind of felt that small island complaint in Tears of the Kingdom, to be honest. Wanted to explore a lot and felt a bit let down with seeing tiny islands with nothing on them. Well, the super tiny ones, yeah, they were really just platforms to get to the next big island. And yeah, there were some decent-sized islands with not much on them, but I don't know. I thought it was still pretty
Tears
fun.
of Kingdom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Tears
Yeah.
of Kingdom.
I felt like the islands in Tears of the Kingdom, the Sky Islands at least, there was a lot more content in the sky in that game than in Skyward Sword.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Which is kind of crazy because that's like in the sky, you probably spend the least amount of time in the sky than in any part of in that game, and yet there is more content up there in Tears of the Kingdom than there was in the sky in Skyward Sword. I guess that's just a testament to how huge that game is.
Well, anyway, I don't know if I'll ever re-review certain games, but that would definitely be one of them. Thing is, I have to replay the game to get the footage, and I don't want to right now.
I guess just giving your thoughts here that might be good enough, right?
If I ever made re-reviews into an actual thing, then yeah, I would have to replay them. But if I did, I would probably play the HD version.
Would you still say that, yeah, even after replaying it and not being as into the game now, would you still say that Skyward Sword is kind of an underrated Zelda game?
Underrated?
Yeah.
I don't know about underrated. I think it gets too much hate on it. But the score I gave it in my video, even for me, I think that's too generous.
I forgot. Did you give it 4.5 or 4.75?
7.5.
Oh, yeah, I would say that's a bit generous.
I think for me, it was still during the time where it had just come out. I
Yeah.
wanted to get the review out immediately, and it was very different from other Zeldas, and I was just on that hype train, I guess.
Yeah.
But looking back at it and replaying it again, there's some things I would have done differently.
Yeah, the hype for Skyward Sword, I remember it was just like, it was kind of insane. Everyone was like, this is the best game ever. This is the best Zelda game ever.
No, it's not even in my top 3.
Yeah, same. But I still like it.
All right, Mario Superstar Baseball.
It's time for the Mario Superstar Baseball review for the GameCube. Now, unlike Mario Strikers Charged, where I thought I wasn't going to have as much fun as I actually did because it was soccer, or as it's called basically everywhere else, football, I never understood why the USA calls football football. It should be called handball, or egg ball, or even padded rugby. Anyway,
hold on, I know why it's called
Yeah,
football.
me too.
And for those of you who
Yeah, history lesson
care
time.
or even don't care, I'm going to tell you anyway, is because in the original football, American NFL football, you did use your feet, and the ball was actually round. And it was similar to soccer, but way more violent. And it eventually gained the rule where you could use your hands to pick it up.
Oh. That's not the explanation I've heard.
Well,
I've heard that in like varsity sports, any kind of sport where you're like on foot was called football. So soccer, rugby, gridiron football, those were all classified as football. It to differentiate itself from sports you played on a horse, like polo. You know, varsity sports, they're like that. And so football just kind of kept that name in America because it's just more popular. And then soccer is called soccer because I'm pretty sure the UK called it soccer first, and that just kind of
Really?
yeah, and then in America we just kind of kept that name while the UK went back to football.
Not saying you're wrong, but the information I got was from a history channel.
Oh, really?
On YouTube. And the original rules, you used your feet, you couldn't use your hands. But
Okay.
it was similar to soccer, but just extremely violent. And
So like more like rugby?
more violent than rugby.
Oh, really? Wow.
People actually died playing the sport. And so to make it less violent and less injuries, we were like, okay, we're going to make a rule you can use your hands now. And instead of kicking the ball to players, you had to throw it to other players.
Yeah.
And it just evolved from there. Anyway, back to the review.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I thought I would have a lot of fun with this game because it's baseball, one of my favorite sports. Unfortunately, that's not quite the case. In the opening cutscene, Mario and Luigi are playing catch when a flyer falls from the sky. Bowser is challenging not only them, but many other characters as well to a... Well, it's not really a tournament, since if you lose a match, you can just go back and repeat it again and again. Anyway, you get the picture. I guess Bowser realizes that Mario kicks his butt every time he tries to take over, or capture Peach, or both actually, so he decides that he'll exact his revenge using America's pastime. Man, he's getting desperate for a victory. All of this happens in single-player mode, where you can choose your team captain, which will be one of the main Mario characters, because the secondary Mario characters apparently aren't important or cool enough to be chosen as captains. But don't worry, they'll get to be picked to build up your team. Each character, including captains, have their own stats, like pitching, running, batting, etc. You'll definitely want to be diverse in your choices, otherwise you will have a difficult time winning. So you're on a map that feels similar to Mario Party, and you'll go around to each stadium and play the other teams. There's also a store you can go to purchase special items which can improve your team's abilities, such as faster running, more power in your swings, and so forth. To buy these items, you need coins. To get coins, you can play mini-games located on the map in certain places. These mini-games actually have a steeper learning curve than you might think. It took me a while to figure out how to not come in last place as you play against the computer. Bear in mind that I usually put the difficulty of the mini-games at high, or at least medium in the beginning, to potentially win more coins, of course, but you might want to start out on easy, since the computer doesn't mess around. The point is to go to each stadium, win each match, then Bowser Stadium will be unlocked, which then you can play against him and hopefully win. Every time you win, new characters will be available on your roster. There's a side quest system when playing in this mode. If you can complete a special scenario within a game, a teammate of yours can have its stats increased. Such scenarios include winning the game with a specific pitcher, or hitting a home run with a certain character, stuff like that. And I like this, since it increases the overall fun factor of the game. When I saw the back of the case for this game, it says 1 to 4 players, and I was like, sweet, my siblings and I can all play a game together. But is this the case? No! The only thing all 3 of us get to do is play mediocre mini-games and a mode called Toy Field. Toy Field is where there are 3 fielders, including the pitcher, and 1 batter. The point is to get as many coins as you can in a certain number of rounds. When the ball is hit, wherever it goes determines what happens, such as a bunch of coins can appear, or a batter can get a single, double, triple, and of course, a home run. Players switch out to bat when the ball is caught from a pop fly, or when the batter strikes out. Toy Field is okay, but it's really nothing too special in my opinion. The part where you actually do get to play against a friend, singular, not friends, is during an exhibition game. This was actually pretty disappointing, since I was looking forward to playing with more than one person during a game. Each of you get to pick your captain and teammates. There's more strategy when picking who you want on your team other than player stats. Certain characters play better when associated with other characters. Like for example, the Donkey Kong characters play better, as in throwing and running, when they're in certain situations. Like if one Kong character throws the ball to another Kong character, they'll throw the ball faster. If a character is on a base and a compatible character is up to bat, I'm not sure, but I think the base running character will run faster. Anyway, the point is that you'll want compatible characters in certain positions on the field, and will want compatible characters next to each other in the batting order. The graphics are really good, of course. It's Mario, so you basically know what to expect, but that's not a bad thing. The controls are good for the most part, but they can be tricky to learn in the beginning, and I think it'll take you a bit to master them, kind of like Mario Strikers Charged. The pitching is simple. Press and hold down the A button for up to about 3 seconds for more power in your throw. If you let go of it at an exact time, you'll throw a really fast pitch. You can move the pitcher left and right for an angle, and you can also move the ball to the left and right during the time span that the ball is in the air. Batting works just the same way as pitching, although I don't understand why they let you move the batter all over the batter's box during a pitch. That seems a little far-fetched. Now, fielding and base running are on the edge of suck. Well, at least when you're trying to figure it all out. However, it can still be very frustrating, especially with the base running. The base running AI is a joke. So here's an example. If you know how baseball works, if there are any players on a base and the batter hits a pop fly when there are less than 2 outs, you stay on the base and wait to see if the ball is caught. If it is caught, you have to touch the base you're on, then you start running
How
to
is the
another
Goomba
base
swinging
if it
the
looks like
baseball
you
bat?
can make it. You don't start running when the ball is hit and it's obviously a pop fly unless there are 2 outs, but that's different. Anyway, the point is that this game doesn't factor in the smart strategy, and so you will pay for it if you don't realize that the computer is dumb. You will have to manually tell the computer to go back to the base and stay there most of the time. Otherwise, they will just run to the next base regardless if it's a pop fly or not. Now see, in my mind, I know how baseball is played, and so I'm not thinking the computer will be stupid in its base running strategies, but apparently they don't, and so it really takes the fun away from the game. It's like teaching Little League, but your players forget the base running rules every time there's a new batter. Now the fielding is better, but the controls can make you frustrated, and the depth perception is blah. When running to catch the ball, you have to tap the B button really fast to run to the drop spot, but the problem is, when you stop tapping B and let go of the analog stick, the character doesn't always immediately stop. Another problem is, I'm not expecting the computer to automatically move to the position of the drop spot, so I will move them to where I think they're gonna go, but they move even farther because the computer is trying to automatically move to the drop spot. I guess they put this in to make the game easier, but I want to control the characters. I don't want to watch the computer automatically move them. I might as well just watch regular baseball. Now the game isn't bad, even though I've been ranting and raving. It's just a bunch of annoyances and frustrations that all build up. One thing I did like about it is that each team has a set amount of stars. You can use these stars to perform special pitches or use them to make your swing very powerful. Another thing I liked was the variables in each stadium. Like in Peaches, there are blocks in the sky which can alter the path of the ball, or like in Bowser's, fireballs come down which can disrupt the fielders. These are fun for an additional challenge, but like Mario Strikers Charged, I usually preferred ordinary stages. Mario Superstar Baseball is an okay game. Good graphics, can be pretty fun sometimes, especially when you're playing with your friends, a good selection of characters with stats, and there was more strategy to the game than I first thought. However, I did not like the base running AI, the auto-fielding was a frustration, the minigame difficulty can be questionable, and for me at least, there's really no lasting appeal. I haven't had the urge to come back and play this game, unlike Mario Strikers Charged. Granted, those are 2 different sports, but still, I didn't have as much fun as I thought I would have, and that was disappointing. Overall, though, it's a pretty good game, and is a lot better when playing with friends. It's definitely not the best baseball game I've played, but it's not a bad one either. Wow, I'm pretty sure I'm in the minority when it comes to how much I like this game, since I'm giving it this score. This game gets a 3.25 out of 5, with a title of good.
I don't know if it's that game or the one on the Wii, but apparently there's like a pretty sizable competitive scene for that game. If you can believe that.
There was something somebody said up here. Fun Scam. High Frequency, I have been watching your videos as a kid, first as a way to pick out classics for my Wii at the time, and your personality and balanced review style. I loved your vlogs from college too. Thank you very much, and welcome to the stream. I don't think I've seen you in the comments before, but welcome anyway. Mr. Toad says Mario Sports Mix is better.
Really?
Says one of my favorite... Oh, Nick Ray also says it is one of his favorite sports games ever, and he doesn't even like sports.
I remember playing, I think it was like a demo in Walmart of that game, and I remember liking Dodgeball, but the other games I wasn't really into in that collection. Do you remember playing that game?
No. Mario Sports Mix?
Yeah.
No, I don't think I've ever. Joshman, would you still go back and replay Mario Superstar Baseball to this day or not? Probably not.
Do you still have it?
Yeah, it's down there. But I don't really have anybody to play with, and it's not a game I'm dying to play. Okay. Beautiful Joe 2. I should probably cue it up first.
Beautiful Joe 2!
It's time for
logo
the
looks
Beautiful
cool.
Joe 2 review
Kind of a
for the GameCube.
Crazy Taxi vibe going
Yeah.
on.
Now, if you've played the original Beautiful Joe, or at least have seen my review for it, you will see that Beautiful Joe 2 is very not different, very similar. The story takes place right
Okay.
after the ending in Beautiful Joe 1, but for the sake of not spoiling, Joe is going through movie land, fighting bad guys, and trying to collect 7 Oscars. You know, like movie Oscars. However, this time, Sylvia joins up with him and gets a V-Watch of her
I
own,
think the
so now
Oscars
she
are
can
going on
transform
right
and
now.
defeat Eve.
Really?
Yeah.
This is a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up with 3D cel-shaded graphics. Like I said, this game is very similar to the original Beautiful Joe by means of controls, graphics, gameplay, mechanics, physics. Virtually everything is the same, but that's not a bad thing considering Beautiful Joe 1 was an excellent game. Most of the differences has to do with Sylvia. As before, Joe has special powers which allow him to manipulate time. He can slow down time, speed it up so he moves very fast, and zoom, where the camera zooms in on Joe, which allows him to perform awesome, powerful attacks. Yes, this review is sounding similar to Beautiful Joe 1. Anyway, Sylvia has basically the same powers, and you can choose to fight with her at any time during the game just by pressing the Z button, and again to switch back to Joe. So
There he
Sylvia
comes.
has the powers slow and zoom, but she doesn't have Mach speed. In place of it, she has replay. By holding down the R button, the game will go into replay mode, and if you kick something, it will allow Sylvia to do triple damage. It's a cool power, and is necessary for some puzzles in the game. However, it can get confusing sometimes because I'm used to Mach speed for Joe when I hold down the R button. It's an annoyance, but not really a complaint, since all you have to do is remember which character you have out during the game. When you defeat an enemy, they will drop V-points, which are used as currency to help upgrade Joe's and Sylvia's powers. The trick to getting a lot of V-points is to defeat enemies in a chain. To do this, dodge an enemy, use slow, then destroy all of the enemies with targets on them. Doing this will get you a lot of V-points. The catch is, though, you only have a certain amount of time to keep performing your special powers. Near the top of the screen is your VFX gauge. Anytime you perform a special power, the gauge will begin to deplete, and if it runs out, both Joe and Sylvia will revert back to their normal selves. The gauge automatically refills on its own, and so after a few seconds of waiting, both characters will transform back to their superhero selves. The gauge will also be refilled by collecting bottles of some kind of juice. These bottles will be dropped by defeated enemies, which will allow you to continuously use a VFX power. To increase the overall capacity of the VFX gauge, you will want to collect V-films. 50 films for 1 bar increase. You will definitely want to collect V-films. It's so much fun to use the powers for a long time. The VFX powers for both characters are not only used to fight enemies with, they are also used to help solve puzzles. And actually, some of the puzzles can stump you. I had to look up a walkthrough for a couple of them. They're not the easiest puzzles around. Every time you complete a puzzle in the level, you are graded on how many V-points you got within the time it took to complete the puzzle, how well you did on your defense, and how long it took you to complete the puzzle. At the end of the level, your scores are averaged out, and you will receive bonus V-points based on your average. The graphics are colorful and vibrant. Cel-shaded style just works for this game. It helps with the flashy, intense atmosphere. The controls are basically perfect. There's really nothing bad I can say about them. However, I will say that if you're playing this game before Beautiful Joe 1, the controls can take a bit to get used to, but they always do what they're supposed to do when you want them to. There is something negative in this game that I have to address, and if you've played Beautiful Joe 1, I'm pretty sure you've encountered it as well. When in slow mode with either character, I noticed that when in the air, both characters move a lot slower than in Beautiful Joe 1. In the original, when you would perform a punch or kick in midair, it wouldn't take Joe that long to turn around, perform another action, or even fall to the ground. This game makes it so it does just that. I don't like fighting in midair with either character while in slow mode because the characters themselves can become frustratingly slow. Now frequency, you can just hold down the R button to use Mach speed while you're in slow mode with Joe to make Joe move faster. Yes, well this only works when you're on the ground, and all it does is make Joe run and turn around faster. Another thing I didn't like was that every time you switched out a character, they could get hit almost instantly when they come into play. Now maybe I'm just being really picky with this, but I think the switched in character should blink for at least half a second, giving them invincibility for just enough time to let me know they are now in play. Again, I'm probably being picky, but it seemed like the majority of the times I switched in a character, they would get hit, which is of course annoying and frustrating. The boss battles were fun and challenging at times, however, like in Beautiful Joe 1, once you learn a specific special move, you can take them out fairly easily, which I have to say is fun, but it also depletes the challenge factor. Luckily, the programmers got smart with this fact, and so the bosses won't just stand there and take a huge beating. It'll take a bit to beat them, but that's only because they'll move out of your range of attack, or your attacks will sometimes go right through them. Beautiful Joe 2 is a great game. Great graphics, virtually perfect controls, awesome special powers, Sylvia is a nice addition, good boss battles, and the game is not a pushover. However, a big disappointment for me was the fact that both characters move too slowly while in the air.
I love
Switching
these
out
poses.
characters could be dangerous too often, and although Sylvia is a cool addition, I think I prefer to only have Joe. I don't know why, but I usually stuck with playing as Joe, as it was more fun. Overall, though, it's still a great game and can be pretty funny at times, too. I like the first game better, but this game is definitely worth playing. This game gets a 4.25 out of 5 with the title of Awesome.
I like the first game better than this one.
Oh.
Sorry, my bad. Trying to...
Well, that's a new intro, right?
Oh, yeah, it is. We'll watch this one. Oh, and also, Donkey Kong Country Returns. This is the first review I use widescreen 16:9 footage on. Because I upgraded to... Before all this, I was either using Windows Movie Maker or Pinnacle Studio 15, which didn't give you the option of widescreen. But I finally upgraded to 20, and it gave me this. I was so happy.
This is Viddy's favorite intro.
My favorite song for all the intros is the first one. It's a remix song from the original, which the original was made from his stage name is Bass Hunter. I think he's a Swedish or somewhere in the Baltic stage. He's from
Sweden isn't Baltic.
I didn't mean Sweden. Switzerland.
Switzerland. Okay.
Or no. Yeah, Sweden.
Sweden is a Norse country, I think. Or what's the word? Oh, now I forgot the word.
Oh, anyway, one of one of those three: Finland, Sweden, or Norway. Anyway, that was my favorite song. This one is good though too. So, Mr. To the Gamer, this is the first frequency review I saw. Are you referring to this next one? I'm guessing. I still have not played Tropical Freeze.
Really?
No.
Oh, I need to lend that to you. That game is so good. The music in it is just amazing. It's the music is the same guy who composed like the original Donkey Kong Country games.
Oh.
David Wise.
Okay.
He didn't do this game.
Okay. All right, well, let's get into it, and we're gonna watch the intro.
Kind of loud.
It's time for the Donkey Kong Country Returns review for the Wii. This is my 100th review, and to celebrate, I created a new intro for my reviews.
turn it
I
down a
hope
bit?
you enjoyed it. Also, I would just like to say thank you to all of my subscribers and viewers out there. Thank you so much for all of your support. Reviewing video games would just not be as fun or rewarding without you. You guys are awesome. So let's get to the
Thank
game.
you.
Now, I don't know about you, but when I saw the E3 trailer for this game, I was like, I had so much fun with the original Donkey Kong Country and its sequel back on the SNES, so when I saw this game, I knew I had to get it. Now the question is, was it worth it? Well, let's find out. The story is about how evil tikis have stolen all of the bananas on the island where Donkey Kong lives by hypnotizing all of the animals through melodies. All are affected by the songs, except for Donkey and Diddy Kong. So because bananas are apparently the only food source both Kongs eat, they set out to confront the tikis and take the bananas back. This game plays very similar to SNES Donkey Kong titles, which is a very good thing since those games were awesome. You will jump on, roll into, and slam the ground to take out enemies and find hidden treasures. Speaking of which, there are a lot of hidden collectibles throughout the game. Each level has the familiar golden KONG letters scattered throughout, and they also have various puzzle pieces, which can be very tricky to find. There are also coins in each level, which are surprisingly plentiful. You can take these coins to Cranky Kong, who I think should eat more bananas, because potassium can help with crankiness. Oh, maybe that's why he's so cranky. There aren't any bananas. Anyway, you can exchange the coins for items, such as balloons, which are extra lives, a parrot, which helps you locate puzzle pieces, an additional heart, which will be explained in just a second, a map key, which will allow you to unlock an alternative path on the map, and banana juice, which will make you temporarily invincible. Now, that doesn't mean you can just walk over enemies. You still become temporarily stunned if you touch... there we go again. Touch an enemy. The only difference is that you don't lose a heart. That's a new feature that the SNES Donkey Kong games didn't have, hearts for hit points. I didn't like this feature at first because I wanted the game to stay true to its roots as much as possible. However, I'm so glad the developers added an additional hit because the game is hard and would be excruciatingly hard if you died after only one hit. I was very surprised by the difficulty of this game. Now, challenge is a good thing, but some of these levels really try my patience. The levels are just full of creativity, much more than I expected. Layers of the level will move or disappear to reveal hidden areas. There are multiple paths for each level. Elements of the level which you would think are harmless are actually trying to kill you. This game really surprised me on how much there is in each level. Just like in previous platforming Donkey Kong games, you can play local co-op with a friend. This time, whoever plays as Diddy can get on Donkey Kong's back, and the first player can move through the level without having to worry about the second player. In this game, Diddy has a jetpack which allows him or both characters to hover in the air for just a second, long enough to get to hard-to-reach places or escape certain doom. Diddy also has a peanut pop gun, which can only be used by the second player. I wasn't sure if I liked Diddy having these objects, because I guess I was just thinking the game would be more like the SNES Donkey Kong games. But after playing it for a bit, I welcome them. They're a nice addition. Another nice addition is that you can continuously roll with Donkey Kong as long as you had Diddy with you. What I didn't like was that if you only play single-player mode, you have to be Donkey Kong at all times. You can't switch characters like you could back on the SNES. In single-player mode, Diddy Kong will always be on Donkey Kong's back, instead of following him. It's not a huge disappointment, but a disappointment nonetheless. When you reach the end of a level, you will have to punch the prize barrel to complete the stage. The prize barrel will give you a prize based on when you punch the barrel. I thought this was pretty cool. At the end of the level, the game will tally up how many Kong letters you got, as well as how many puzzle pieces you found. The Kong letters and puzzle pieces both unlock bonus content, so there is a lot of replayability if you didn't get every letter or puzzle piece on your first try, which I'm 99% sure you will not. The graphics are very beautiful, very vibrant, detailed, and smooth. The controls are great for the most part. You can either use the Wiimote Nunchuck combo or just the Wiimote alone. I stuck with the latter, and it worked just fine for me. You'll shake the Wiimote up and down to have Donkey Kong repeatedly slam the ground, and you'll perform the same action to roll. Just hold down either left or right, and off you go. The music is terrific. It really brought back memories of playing on the SNES. One thing I didn't like was that the rhino from past Donkey Kong games is the only special playable animal. What happened to the ostrich, the frog, the swordfish? That was disappointing. I did like the boss fights, however. Some of them were a bit on the easy side, while others gave you a challenge. Plus, it was very satisfying to give them that final punch in the end. Donkey Kong Country Returns is a great game. Beautiful graphics, sharp controls, co-op mode is fun, lots of extras and replayability, great level design, and good boss fights. I thought the difficulty of some of the levels was a little too high, didn't like that you couldn't switch out with Diddy Kong and always had to be Donkey Kong, and didn't like that only the Rhino is the only special character. Overall, though, it is a really fun game that you should definitely check out. I'm not sure if this is the best 2D platforming game I've ever played, but it is definitely one of the best. This game gets a 4.25 out of 5 with the title of Awesome.
I played that game, I played the 3DS remake of that game.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Everybody's telling me I gotta play Tropical Freeze.
Oh, yeah.
Have you played the original?
Of Returns?
Uh-huh.
I think I played a demo of it.
Oh.
And then I think I may have played like a couple levels from your copy, but I played like my own file and beat it on the 3DS. Fun fact, Donkey Kong Country Returns was developed by Retro Studios, same developers who did the excellent, amazing Metroid Prime trilogy. Yeah, they also helped develop Mario Kart 7, Yeah, Retro Studios, I don't think they've made a bad game.
Uh-oh, now that you said really it, they will.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I really want to see what they've done with Metroid Prime 4.
If they don't show it during... I mean, I know E3 is not a thing anymore, but I'm just going to call the June show E3. If they don't show it during then, I'm going to give up on it. This is ridiculous. And I know they're going to have it as a launch title for the Switch successor. It just makes sense that they would, but how many years now? Since we saw it in 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 years. Since we first heard it. It's ridiculous.
Well, Retro Studios started development
I know.
It, like 2019 or something.
I know, but having them to restart to begin with is baloney.
What I want to know is, I want to see, like, how far... Or I want to... The original developers, I want to see what their version of the game looked like before they canceled it. Because, like, they canceled it because it just wasn't up to their standards. So
what does that mean, though? What is up to their standards? I have not played Other M. I know you have, but I know that Other M was controversial and it got some hate. So I'm wondering, was the original design going that direction and Nintendo just didn't know about it until like, no, forget it, we're not doing that?
That could be. Maybe it was just like, maybe it wasn't even like a first person perspective. And then they just designed it around that like so much that changing it back to first person would have just completely altered the design. Who knows? Maybe I'm guessing. Like I can't imagine that it was just like badly designed. I have to imagine it was just a completely different kind of game design than the originals. You know?
Yeah.
Because Namco Bando, or what is it? Namco Bandai. They're not necessarily a bad developer.
No.
So they must have just had like a miscommunication about what was expected.
So if that's the case, like, why didn't Retro get first dibs?
I don't know. That's a good question, because like, what were they working on before? Because they had already wrapped development on Tropical Freeze for like a couple years by that point.
I don't know.
So who knows what they were working on.
Didn't Gavin, look, I understand that they had to restart development in 19, but the way to seriously get ridiculous, the fact that we haven't seen anything since then is so disheartening.
Nothing.
Completely agree. Give me something.
Although I think I have heard I think I've seen like a picture of like, it's like a silhouette of Samus in like this dark spaceship type looking area, and like that's it. That's the only thing I've seen.
Really?
Yeah, I think it might be on their website, Retro's website.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
It just like came out a few months ago.
Whenever Nintendo has like the big direct, which I'm just gonna say it's June, I'm going to expect something. And actually, I think that's when we're going to hear the Switch successor, whatever it's called. All right, Lord of the Rings: Return of the King.
How many reviews do we have till that Kawasaki game?
I don't know.
Because that's where you said you wanted to stop, right?
That was an idea of where to stop, but I don't know. This is a rare movie game that I really like.
Time for the Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King review for the GameCube. If you didn't know from my Third Age review, I love Lord of the Rings, and I'm really looking forward to the Hobbit movie, which just happens to come out on my birthday.
Huh.
If you're not
that
familiar with the
movie
Lord of the
suck?
Rings, this game
Hobbits?
is the third movie of
No.
the trilogy. The game starts you near the end of the battle
I've
for
heard bad
Helm's
things
Deep as
about it.
Gandalf, and even though this is really the tutorial of the game, you must be on your guard as soon as it starts, because you can die
Oh,
really
wow.
quickly. When you complete that level, which should only take a few minutes, the game takes you to the part of the movie where Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli enter the Haunted Mountain. The majority of the game is you playing as one of these three characters through different levels of the game, which are taken from scenes in the movie. However, if you've seen the movie, you will notice that this gameplay footage is not in the movie. Nowhere in the movie do you see the trio battling against ghosts and killing them somehow. Anyway, the point is that basically this whole level doesn't exist in the movie. Now, I've never read the Lord of the Rings books, so if this level is the equivalent to a part in the book, then okay, I understand why the developers put this in. But if it's not, it just doesn't make sense. Well, I guess it makes some sense. The game is already pretty short, so not putting this level in, as well as other levels which didn't really happen in the movie, more spin-offs than anything, would make the game very short. Once you complete a certain amount of levels with the trio, other branches of levels will be opened up to you. The left side of the map tree is
the
Gandalf's
Hobbit
levels, and the
reviews,
right side is with
people didn't
Frodo,
like the
Sam, and
CGI.
Smeagol. This game is
Oh,
pretty
really?
fun
Okay.
playing in single-player mode, but is way more fun playing co-op mode. Now with the trio, it's understandable. One plays as Aragorn, Legolas, or Gimli, and the other player chooses among them as well. With Frodo's levels, one is Frodo and the other is Sam. However, with Gandalf's, one is Gandalf and the other is someone from the trio. Yes, it doesn't make sense, but then again, battling the Balrog in Third Age with Gandalf didn't make sense either, but it was still fun, and that's how it is with this game. If you're a die-hard fan of The Lord of the Rings, then this game might upset you a bit, because quite a bit of it is created for the game itself. The game is a real-time RPG. Killing opponents will give you XP, with fast consecutive kills giving you more XP than kills farther apart from each other. As you hit and kill off opponents, a gauge at the bottom of the screen will start to fill up. If you can get multiple kills within a minute amount of time, your character will go into perfect mode, where you can receive major experience points for each kill. At the end of each level, your XP is tallied up, and with this XP you can purchase new attacks and upgrades for either your character, or for a bulk of XP more, you can get the same attacks and upgrades for all characters at once, which is actually the better deal. Better to buy in bulk. The new attacks you can purchase really boost the fun factor of the game. It would become so boring, monotonous, and more difficult than it already is if all the game allowed you was to button mash like crazy. Each special attack is triggered by a specific combos of buttons, some of which are more difficult to pull off. Not that they're really hard, but some combos just take one button, and you'll press it like 3 or 4 times in a row. It's still really fun to pull off the combos. As I said a few seconds ago, the game is hard, so much so that it can be quite frustrating at times. Like this scenario here, and by the way, this is only like the second or third level, the point is to run out of the collapsing mountain before you get crushed. However, you have to fight off ghosts with an invisible time limit against you, and also right here, this fog will not allow you to run, just walk. A friend and I found that if you flail your weapons while walking through the mist, you'll move just a little faster.
That's funny.
But sometimes that isn't enough. As you will see, the mountain still comes down on you. And so you have to restart the level. There's like very little room for error in this level. It's pretty difficult when playing co-op, but can be agonizingly difficult when just playing in single-player mode. Why? Well, like I said, you have a time limit, and you can't see the countdown, and you have to defeat all of the ghosts yourself within the time limit, and the ghosts can be difficult to take down, and so you have all these variables against you just in practically the beginning of the game. Oh yeah, there are health potions scattered throughout each level, and sometimes enemies drop health potions, but honestly, they're just too few, so that's another thing that makes the game difficult. However, once you complete this level, the game actually becomes playable to the point where you aren't ripping out your hair and falcon punching Hupo. Not that the game becomes easy, but it's actually a good challenge. The graphics are pretty good for the time of its release. There are a few glitches here and there, but nothing that affects the gameplay. The most noticeable... well, it's not a
wow, that
glitch, it's
explosion
just
looks
how the
really
game was
good.
programmed. Thing of the game is that during the in-game cutscenes, the characters' mouths do not move when speaking.
Who enters my domain?
One who would hold you to your own.
This right here is just pure laziness of the developers. Yes, it doesn't affect the gameplay, but still, come on. The controls are perfect, actually. Everything works when you want it to. One thing I did think was a bit odd is that if you
Well,
spam the B button,
characters in
you can
Dark
block
Souls
and
don't
parry
do that.
attacks for virtually forever.
You know, I was thinking this-
it's
this
nice when
reminds me
you're
of
in a
Dark Souls.
jam, but it just looks kind of odd. Spazzing out all of the time. I didn't like that the game is pretty short, but then again, since it's based on the movie/books, I guess they did a pretty good job creating filler, even if that filler wasn't in the movie. Maybe it was in the books, I don't know. I also didn't like how you had no control over the camera. It would have been really nice at times, maybe even preventing some deaths. Maybe. But having no control over the camera is just... no, it sucks. The boss battles were few, and they were fun, but it wasn't like you had to use much strategy to beat them. Attack, 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 defend, defend, defend. Rinse and repeat until they're dead. Once you complete certain levels, you are rewarded with bonus content, such as artwork and behind-the-scenes clips. The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King is a pretty good game. Fun RPG action, pretty good graphics, perfect controls, and playing co-op is really fun. However, the game is a little too short, despite them adding in filler, I'm assuming, and the whole game, even with special attacks and upgrades, can be for the most part frustratingly hard. Even when playing co-op, it's still pretty difficult, so much so that it just decreases the amount of fun. But don't worry, it's definitely not a bad game. It can be very enjoyable, especially when playing with a friend, if you just stick with it and have some patience. This game gets a 3.75 out of 5 with the title of Awesome.
Do you like that game more or less than the turn-based RPG?
Generally, I like real-time more just because it's more overall fun for me, but Third Age is better. There's just a lot of content.
One day, Hupo will get his revenge.
Never! We will continue to get Falcon punched. Yep. I have not played Two Towers yet.
Is that also like an action beat 'em up game?
Yeah, it's just like
okay.
Return of the King, but I hear it's a lot shorter. I don't know if this is true, but I heard it's only single player too. And I think I need to apologize to the developers when I say they were just being lazy and didn't do any mouth movements. I realize it's a movie game, so they have better. They have more
stricter time
limits.
Yeah.
Or deadlines.
Yeah, they have to get the game out before the game or before the movie comes out, basically.
Yeah. So,
or the day it comes out.
I don't know. It was really odd first playing it. I remember playing that. It was like an all-nighter with a friend from school one time, and man, it was just so much fun. Have I read Lord of the Ring books? No, I have listened to Fellowship of the Ring on audiobook, but I haven't done the others.
Does someone from the movies narrate the book?
No.
Oh.
No. All right, Mini Ninjas. Oh, here's a perfect example. See this checkerboard pattern?
Yeah.
That is due to faulty hardware.
Oh.
That's bad composite cables. And at the time, I had no idea how to fix it, and I just had to go with it.
Yeah, it looks really fuzzy.
Yep. You can't really see it too much on CRT monitors, but flat screen HD TVs, you can definitely see it, and that's what's happening here.
Ninja's review for the Wii. This is my 3rd anniversary review. I started reviewing games 3 years ago, and I'd like to once again say thank you to all my supporters. You guys and gals are the reason I keep reviewing. So let's get to the game. The story is about how evil samurais have started to take over the peaceful land, and to try and investigate and defeat the evil, the Ninja Master has sent out one by one his greatest warriors. Unfortunately, they have not returned, so the Ninja Master sends out his last 2 ninjas, Hiro and Futo. This is an action game. The whole point of each level is to fight your way through on a linear path to the end of the stage. And actually, I'm 99% sure you don't even have to fight any enemies. All you really need to do is travel to point B. But where's the fun in that? Hiro is the youngest of the ninjas, but the most important one. Along with having awesome ninja skills, he also has the power to control Kuji magic. This allows him to perform awesome techniques such as stopping time, shoot fireballs, and possess animals to become stealthier, and with certain animals, gain a new ability for a short time. Futo is a slower but stronger ninja and is recommended for battle against bigger foes. However, it's not required that you use him, which I found to be a bit odd because he's there for you to use. But honestly, I didn't find anything in the game that required me to play as him, and that goes for each ninja you rescue as you play through the game. I mean, yeah, it's fun to switch out and play as each one, but I personally didn't find anything which required me to switch out from Hiro. Perhaps I missed some areas in the game, because I'll admit I didn't search everywhere, but I'm pretty sure it would be hard to miss, because most of the game is on a linear path. Each ninja has their own special attack. Hiro can stop time and rush towards a certain amount of enemies, taking them out in one hit. Shun launches an exploding arrow, and Suzumi plays her flute, which somehow stuns enemies. Either she's playing a mystical song, or she's just really bad at playing it. Scattered throughout each level are items you can pick up and store in your inventory. A lot of items you'll find are plant life. You can mix specific ingredients together to create various potions, such as health and stamina potions, and others like arrow shield and special power potions. There are ninja gadgets you'll find in breakable containers like shuriken and various bombs, which can be helpful. To use an item, make sure it's selected from your inventory and press down on the D-pad. One feature I liked was that your character didn't have to stop moving to use an item, a feature which I think other games should take a lesson from. The controls work fine, but they're clunky. It took me a while to remember which buttons did what. Attacking is easy, but too simple. Let me explain. Press the B button to attack, but spam it to mow through the enemies with ease. Combat is too simple. There's very little strategy, which decreases the fun of the game. It actually gets a little dull sometimes, and for this, I'm glad that fighting off the enemies is, for the most part, optional. The graphics look good. It has a nice simple charm to it. However, I wish the levels were more detailed. It's not that they look bad, I just find there's a lack of scenery for the majority of each level. The music is nice, but honestly, it's basically forgettable. Only when you're fighting opponents does the music pick up, but for the rest of it, it can actually make the game dull, which was disappointing. When you come to the end of each level, you will be shown your progress for that level pertaining to the amount of items you obtained. It is nice that you can continue playing that level and search for any missing items instead of having to proceed to the next stage. The boss battles were... well, they really weren't that fun. Talk about easy! You'll take out bosses by way of QuickTime events that you have to figure out how to trigger, but it doesn't take a genius to figure it out. Really, the only thing fun about the boss fights was the fact that you take them out via QuickTime events, but the QuickTime events are pretty forgiving. If it says to press B and you accidentally press A once or even twice, you can still press B if you're quick enough and the QuickTime event will continue. So yeah, the boss fights weren't really that fun, and this boss... seriously?
Wow.
I literally was like...
My old dorm room.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Anyway, speaking of easy, the whole game is too easy. I even set it to the highest difficulty, and it was still too easy. Yeah, I died a few times, but still, I was expecting more of a challenge. There are extras in the form of cutscenes, which can be unlocked as you progress through the game, and were pretty fun to watch. Mini Ninjas is a pretty good game. Charming graphics, good controls, cool special moves, addicting gameplay, and playing as a different ninja added more fun. However, the game is too easy, even on the hardest difficulty, the controls are a bit clunky, shallow combat, I couldn't find any required times to use different ninjas, which was disappointing, and the boss battles weren't really a challenge, which just decreased the overall fun. However, I still did have fun with it. It's an enjoyable and addicting game, and one that shouldn't be overlooked, especially for younger audiences. This game gets a 3.5 out of 5, with a title of good.
Who developed that game?
Well, my bad.
Keep forgetting.
Okay. Do I own it?
Well, can you go to the beginning of the review where you're on the title screen and see?
It's right there. Just grab it.
Top shelf?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there it is. Eidos. Oh, okay. Warner Brothers. Yeah, Eidos. I think that's I think Square Enix owns that studio now. But I think it's a Canadian or French, or maybe French-Canadian studio.
Viddies. Is that the Dazzle or something? You're referring to the hardware. Yeah, it was the Dazzle when I made these reviews. But now that I have the composite to component, you can't use the Dazzle anymore because Dazzle is only composite. So instead of buying a brand new capture card to, record component footage, I just got a component to HDMI, not splitter, converter, and that plugs into the Hopog. So it's the console composite to component to HDMI to the Hopog, and it's a mess under my desk. There's so many wires and cables, but it works way better. The quality is definitely worth it.
You've ever found it weird that it's called Blob? It's like, yeah, they named it. They spelled it day as if you're reading it with like a European accent or some
like
other
French,
like a foreign accent.
I always thought it was like French.
Yeah,
like my horrible French
but
accent.
but doesn't day mean like of? It doesn't mean
Spanish.
It doesn't mean the. They call it day because you're supposed to read it like in a foreign accent, right? Isn't that weird? Why would they name it like that?
I don't know. I think it's better than the Blob.
I guess it's like more memorable, but it's like, why would you name your game something where you have to say it in a foreign accent?
I don't know.
Don't you think that's weird?
Not really.
Really?
No. I think it's kind of cool. Oh.
All right.
I guess I never really thought about it, and I'm okay. I'm perfectly okay with it.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it's weird.
Whoa. Oh, I didn't know if you held down the mouse on the screen, it would fast forward.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Review for the Wii. This is, of course, the sequel to the original Blob game that I reviewed a while back, and that game was fun. Does this game paint a pretty picture, or does it just go splat? Let's find out. The story is about how Comrade Black is back, and is trying to take over everything with the help of his minions by way of taking away all the color and leaving everything in grayscale.
They're dead now.
And so it's up to you, Blob, to restore color to everything, rescue the citizens called Prismans, and take down Comrade Black. Sounds familiar, right? This game is mostly sweet, but there are bitter ends to it, which I'll get to in a bit. First of all, you have to restore color to just about everything. To do this, you can touch items with the Blob when he has any of the colors red, blue, yellow, orange, green, purple, and brown. Just a heads up, I'm sorry if this review sounds very similar to the review of the original Blob, because, well, this game is very similar. Every time you paint something, additional music will accompany the background music, and a different instrument will be played depending on which color you are at the time. You can paint just about anything: trees, buildings, billboards, and structures. And I'm sure if I had found garbage, you would have been able to paint that as well. There are a handful of side quests in each level. However, I found out that, at least for me, I wasn't able to start them until after I finished the main quests of each level. I didn't like this. I like having multiple quests going at once. This game lets you play co-op with a friend. When I first found that out, I was like, sweet. However, it's not so sweet, because it's not the co-op experience I was hoping for or expecting. It's very
falling
much
down
like Super Mario Galaxy
from
2's
its It's a tiny one, so it's okay. He was just falling down from its web.
It was just a little house spider. It's not dangerous or anything. But yeah, that's a little odd. I thought you were like falling over in your chair.
No, it's just like
co-op mode. In this game, a friend can join in and play as Blob's robot friend and shoot paint at enemies, certain paintable structures, and also pick up items for you. It's not horrible, but I would really like to see a split-screen co-op campaign mode for this game series. A new addition in this sequel are power-ups. During certain times in the game, you can spend specific points to upgrade Blob's attributes, such as more paint points, armor value, and even upgrading Blob's robot friend's maximum paint point holder. I really like this feature, because another new addition to the game is Blob's dash attack. Using this attack is powerful and effective, but it sure drains your paint points fast, so not being restricted to a max of only 100 paint points anymore was a good idea. Another addition was a temporary invincibility item you could obtain, and that item is a bubble. You can roll around in the ink with the bubble surrounding you. However, if you're still in the ink when the bubble pops, you'll start to take damage by the ink, and your paint points will start to deplete. And another new feature are the 2D sections of the levels. The game will switch to a 2D side-scroller whenever you're underground or in the building. It's a nice addition, and it switches up the 3D monotony. However, they're not really too exciting. I prefer the 3D areas much more than the 2D, and the fact that you are forced into the 2D areas to complete the levels was annoying at times. Plus, second player can't help you in these areas. Speaking of which, the role of the second player can come in handy when it comes to obtaining those hard-to-reach items scattered throughout the levels, and can also paint you whichever color they have at the moment, but it's offset by the annoyance second player causes, especially when it comes to obtaining paint points. In order to add more paint points, you'll usually have to find one of many robots wandering throughout the levels that are carrying paint. If player 2 shoots that robot, they will gain the paint points, and you'll either have to wait for it to respawn, so to speak, or go find a different one. You have to have good communication when playing with a friend, otherwise it can get frustrating. The graphics look just
I like
as
how
good
you
as
can
they
just
were with
roll
the
over
very colorful
the
and smooth animation.
little
It's
citizens
not
in
highly
town. It's
detailed,
funny.
but it still looks very good. The controls are the same as they were in the prequel, with a couple of adjustments. In this game, instead of swinging the Wiimote down to jump on an enemy, all you have to do is press A while you're locked onto it. This works just fine, however I find it to be less fun, which was kind of disappointing. You can perform your dash attack while locking onto certain objects and pressing B. I'm still annoyed on how wall sticking works though. If you jump onto a wall, you'll automatically stick to it for a few seconds. I wish that you would have to hold down a button to grip the wall, because sometimes I'll jump and accidentally grab the wall when I didn't want to. Other than that issue, the controls work just fine. The biggest problem I have with the game is that the levels are pretty lengthy, but there's not enough variety to them. It gets pretty monotonous and almost static. Don't get me wrong, the game is fun, but even with the new additions of upgrading yours and player 2's stats, a new attack, a temporary item, and 2D areas, the game can still become dull to the point of having no ambition of finishing the game, and that's what happened with me. This also happened with the original Blob game. The levels are just too similar for how long they are. Now, it might sound like I'll never want to complete the game, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm sure I'll complete it sometime, but this isn't a game I just have to beat now. There
Did
are
you ever
multiplayer
beat it?
mini-games you can play which are fun, and oh my, there are so many collectibles throughout each level. These will give you access to works of art and clips. Blob 2 is a really good game. Great graphics and controls, lots of collectibles, addicting gameplay, and co-op mode was a nice touch. However, the addicting gameplay can drop to monotonous gameplay. Co-op mode, although a cool addition, was disappointing. The 2D areas aren't too exciting, and I still find it annoying that Blob automatically sticks to a wall, a function that can really be annoying. Overall though, it's still a fun game. I think I like the first Blob game better for some reason, but I still like this one, and I think it's definitely worth checking out. This game gets a 3.75 out of 5, with the title of Awesome.
Buster was blobberific. What is that? Resident Evil. Magical chicken. Wait, we must go here. There we go. Yeah, I've always wanted to finish both the Blob games, but dare I say, each game is too long for what it is. It could be trimmed down by about 25%, because the levels are really long.
I remember that from the first game, just watching you play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I downloaded the first game on the PS4 store. It was one of those free games you could try for a while, and again, I didn't finish it. I actually got farther in it than I got on the Wii.
Oh, really?
The Wii version. Mm-hmm.
The Blob 1 or 2?
1. Now this freak was the... Oh, Viddy's saying this was the carrot skin that you were referring to a while back. I remembered that, like, after that one stream, I couldn't remember what the carrot one was, but...
Oh, I don't remember this skit.
Yeah, I remember what it is now. So, okay, here we go. God, that was loud.
Caution! This is an M-rated
is
game,
a
so the
long
magical
review
chicken
too.
insists
10
that
minutes.
viewer discretion is advised. It's time
some
for
of
the
it is the
Resident
live
Evil
skip.
Archives Resident Evil review for the Wii. Now, for any of you who aren't familiar with Resident Evil, this game is a port of the remake Resident Evil for the GameCube. Apparently, this version, compared with the original PS1 version, has, and I quote from Wikipedia, a variety of new gameplay elements, environments, and story details, as well as state-of-the-art visuals. Now, I haven't played the PS1 version or any other platform version of this game, so I will not be comparing this version with the original. So, let's get started. At the selection screen, you'll have to choose which character to play as, Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine. Each character has a different storyline, but not so much that it'll feel like you're playing two separate games. The story is about how Raccoon City's Special Tactics and Rescue Service, or STARS, Team Bravo is sent to a remote region outside the city to investigate a series of grisly murders. However, contact is lost during their mission, so Team Alpha is sent in to find them. While searching through the dark woods, the team is attacked and chased by mangy-looking dogs. The team escapes to a nearby mansion. Now this is where the storyline changes up depending on who you chose to play as. If you chose to play as Chris, he goes alone, mind you, searching the mansion, while Jill and Captain Wesker stay in the front lobby. That's so stupid! I know it's just a game, but it seems so illogical to me that you would split up in a mansion that you've never been in, where you could get lost, you don't know what has happened to Bravo Team, and for all you know they're dead, and plus, the place is spooky. Anyway, if you play as
Did
Jill,
they
you enter
redo
the mansion with Wesker and a
voice
different
acting
guy,
for this
Barry
game?
Burton.
I don't know.
Jill does the same thing, goes and investigates the
so.
mansion, but at least Barry goes with her. But only for about...
Yeah, because I remember I've seen clips of the first one, and it's terrible.
Yeah, I remember the voice acting is supposed to be
No, they
super bad.
definitely redid it.
first few minutes. They agreed to split up. Okay, fine, they're basically a SWAT team and can handle their own. Oh, well, maybe not. This guy sure couldn't. Alright, enough of that. This is a survival horror game. You'll
That
go through
clip
the
is
mansion,
really
fighting off
cool.
zombies, and just trying to figure out what to do next. A lot of the doors are locked at first, so exploring the mansion is very limited in the beginning. You'll eventually find keys by solving puzzles which aren't exactly too difficult. The difficult part is finding the puzzles, staying alive, and conserving ammo. Unlike Resident Evil 4, ammo is not plentiful, and finding it can be a pain. As you probably have already noticed, the camera angles in every room and place in the game are fixed. You have no control over the camera. The camera angles are the real trick in what makes this game scary. Yes, the creepy atmosphere and music help, but the camera angles are what give this game its frightening appeal. Some angles are slanted, some make it so you can't see what's in front of you, and I can't really remember any time the angle is at eye level. This game definitely wouldn't be as chilling if you could control the camera. Now that being said, it does cause a problem, and that's depth perception. It doesn't happen all the time, but certain angles are set so that you can't really tell where you are in relation to another object, such as a door or an item you can pick up. This gets frustrating. I like the creepy fixed camera angles, but I wish the developers would have picked other angles in certain areas to heighten the depth perception. The zombies are slow, but it's balanced out by the lack of ammo you have. Plus, pumping them full of lead isn't enough. The only way to truly get rid of them is with a headshot, which is rare
I like
to do,
how
so
there's
don't
no
count
HUD
on
elements.
it, or
It-
burn them. To burn them, you need to
It
find certain
really,
objects. Once you shoot the
immersive.
zombies
Yeah,
enough to where
it's
they
very
collapse,
immersive.
you
It's
can
like
set
watching
them
a
on
movie.
fire.
Yeah.
If you've never played this game before, you don't know how satisfying and relieving it is to burn them up. Because if you don't, or don't get a headshot and just leave them lying there, later on they will get back up and run at you. So make sure you always burn them up if you can. Now, I've read that Jill's playthrough is easier than Chris's, which I believe. It doesn't make sense to me, though, as to why Chris is the first option to play as at the selection screen just before you play. Shouldn't it be Jill first? I can't really think of any other game that gives you the more difficult option first, then the easier one. Jill's is easier because she receives a lockpick, which is used for certain doors, while Chris needs to go around finding old keys for the same doors. She also gets help from Barry from time to time in the form of cutscenes. And also, and this is a big one, she has 2 more slots in her inventory. Oh man, the inventory system. I did not like this. With Chris, you're only able to hold 6 items at once, and with Jill, 8. Okay, so it's a small inventory. I can deal with that, right? Wrong. This is one of the most frustrating things about the game, if not the most frustrating. And here's why. If all of your slots are filled up, you cannot hold any more items, unless it's ammo, and then it'll just stack. But if you want to drop an item, that's impossible. This doesn't make any sense and can be so aggravating. Why can't I drop items? Here's the deal. You have to find certain rooms that have a chest in them. These will allow you to drop items in here in exchange for new ones. The only thing is, there's like 5 or 6 chests scattered throughout the whole game, which makes it a pain when you have to keep going back and forth dropping off and picking up items, especially when you're playing for the first time and aren't really sure where you'll need a certain item. The save system is unique. To save, you have to find a typewriter to save your progress, but you'll also need ink ribbon to use the typewriter. Ink ribbon is an item you'll find multiple times throughout the game, and you can use one ink ribbon 3 times to save. Once you've used it 3 times, you can't save anymore, and you'll have to find more ink ribbon. This gives the game quite a bit of strategy, as you'll have to use your best judgment on when to save your game. And make sure you save too. If you die, even in a boss fight, you'll be brought back to your last save and have to do everything between your last save and where you died. This gets frustrating, so make sure you know how to juggle your saves wisely. The graphics look great, lots of detail and realistic looking sceneries. I did notice that the facial animations of each character look dated, but I'm guessing that's from the PS1, so it's not a huge deal. The controls are not the best in my opinion. You can play with the Wiimote nunchuck combo, the classic controller, or the GameCube controller. I tried the Wiimote nunchuck
But wasn't
combo
this
at
game, like,
first, and it was
completely
okay,
remade?
but I stuck with the GameCube the vast majority of the game. You have 3 control options to choose from. Number 1 is to move with the analog stick, hold R to aim, and A to shoot. Sounds simple, right? Well, it is, except for the fact that when your character is in a room that has the camera fixed so that you're looking at the front of your character, you still have to push forward on the analog stick to make your character move forward. This makes it
that's
very
weird.
awkward, at least for me, because when I see this, I want to press down on the analog stick, not up. The second control scheme is to press and hold A once to walk, double tap and hold to run, hold L to aim, and Y to shoot. The third one is to hold down R slightly to walk, all the way down to run, aim with L, and A to shoot. All 3 of these control schemes are awkward in their own way for me, but I chose the second control scheme as I found it worked the best for me. Still, holding down A to walk and or run, it's like a control scheme for a racer. I switched to this control scheme later on in the game, and if you do the same, make sure you remember which button does what, as you might forget in a panic and die because you're spamming the wrong button, which is what happened to me. I did like that your character would aim at an enemy when they were within their sight. This really helped determine where enemies were, if you, as the player, couldn't see them due to the fixed camera angles. The voice acting was good, and the story was enticing. It helped me want to finish the game even more. The boss fights were actually really easy. Not to say you probably won't get damaged a few times by them, but they were easier than I expected. A couple of boss fights have alternate ways of defeating them without firing a single bullet. It's creative, yes, but for the other boss fights, I was a bit disappointed from the lack of difficulty. There are extra goodies when you beat the game, especially if you beat it within a certain time limit, which is incentive for replay value as well as the other character's storyline, but after I beat it, I didn't really have an urge to play through it again, at least not anytime soon as I did with Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil Archives Resident Evil
I knew you would say
chilling
that.
graphics and atmosphere,
I've seen
enticing
this
story,
review
creepy
before,
fixed
but, like,
camera angles
man.
really put the fear into this game, a unique and strategic save system, great overall gameplay, alternative boss fight routes were pretty cool, and some good extras for replayability. However, I did not like the inventory system, strategic as it might be. All 3 control schemes weren't the best, some of the camera angles made the depth perception low, and the boss fights were surprisingly easy. Overall, though, this is a great and scary game. I can see why the Resident Evil franchise is so popular. If you want to have a good scary time, then this is the game you'll want to play. This game gets a 4.25 out of 5 with the title of Awesome.
You really like this outro. Oh, right. I forgot about this.
That was my first apartment. What a long day.
You're telling me.
So hungry. Gotta get something to eat.
I think I'm just gonna chill on the couch and play the Wii.
This is like a long
Along what?
live scene skit with multiple different angles.
Yeah.
so tired. Can you give me the Wiimote?
Oh, right.
Well, you know, I'd like to, but you know, got my phone in that pocket, knife, my wallet, and no, I got my pocket watch. And going to Paris.
That look she gives you, like,
What are you
what?
talking about? It's just right there. Just give me the Wiimote.
But my pockets are full. I can't do it.
Just use your other hand.
I don't know what you're saying. Sorry, I can't do it.
Babe, just hand me the Wiimote.
Sorry, babe. That was fun to make.
How come you didn't put that that skit like in the middle of your review, like when you're talking about the inventory system? Like,
I think it was a bit too long to just sandwich between the review. Or, I don't know. I don't remember the reason, but I thought it was just kind of a little funny
yeah,
thing at the end.
that honestly that was probably one of the best directed skits that you made for your reviews.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's very good.
You never got the skit? What was the point of it? Oh wait, then he says, oh, it makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I thought I just saw a spider go under there. Real spiders freak me out, but cockroaches, keep those away from me.
Yeah, cockroaches are disgusting. I don't think I'm afraid of cockroaches. I'm just very, very disgusted by them.
Wow. Josh, man, that particular skit did not make any sense. Well, I'm sorry if you missed the joke, but it does make sense.
Yeah, it's about how, like, it's taking the same logic of the Resident Evil inventory system into real life. Like, oh, I have all this stuff in my pockets. I can't drop this.
Yeah. Okay. Alright, movie game. Meet the Robinsons.
The Robinsons review for the Wii. Even though this game has the same title as the movie, this game isn't a playthrough of the movie, but a prequel to it. Now that doesn't mean you don't have to see the movie to understand this game. You will appreciate and understand the game much more if you've seen the movie prior to playing this game.
Have you ever seen the movie?
I'm not exactly sure of how much to say
like
about
it.
the story, since saying too much could spoil the movie for those who haven't seen it. All I'll say is that you play as Wilbur Robinson, and you have to save the future, which is his present, by going to the past, which could in fact be our present. You will also help save the world in Wilbur's present time too, which is the future. This is an adventure action game. You'll go through and complete puzzles as well as fend off enemies using special gadgets that you have to build yourself. You can find the pieces for each gadget in random objects lying around in just about every area of each level. Most of the parts aren't specific, just 3 different shaped objects that you have to acquire X amount of. The first gadget you build is a scanner. Every gadget you build or receive play a part throughout the whole game, meaning the early gadgets don't become obsolete later on in the game. To use the gadgets, you can press either the right, left, or up button on the D-pad, or if you have a gadget selected, you can press the B button. You will use the reticle via the Wiimote to aim where you want to shoot, but it doesn't always shoot where you point at. You have to make Wilbur look in the general direction of where you want to shoot, which makes the game more realistic, but can also make it frustrating. Sometimes, even when you're looking in the correct direction, the projectile will still not hit your targets, or you'll have to aim dead center with the reticle, not a pixel off, or both to hit your target, which becomes unbelievably frustrating. There are many puzzles in each level. Some are easy to figure out, and some can really try your patience. There's an overall nice level of difficulty for the puzzles in the whole game. Sometimes, the platforming part of the game will switch to more of a minigame mode, either in the form of a game called Charge Ball, or in this mode, where Wilbur must follow a linear path while in a... Well, it's basically a human hamster ball. The charge ball sections are fun, but sometimes can be very difficult. The point is to knock down all of your opponent's blocks with the charge ball, then launch one into their goal. The problems that make it so difficult are that it can be quite tricky to aim where you want to throw the ball, and also the AI rarely, if ever, messes up. So it's fun, but only after you figured out how Wilbur aims the ball. The Protectosphere, or human hamster ball sections of the game are a lot of fun. It can be quite challenging, as you can fall off the path with ease, but it's still very fun. Reminds me of Super Monkey Ball. The biggest problem with the game is by far the camera, and that's because you have to control it the whole time you're playing. Now that doesn't sound so bad, does it? Well, it is. The main problem is that the camera is not fixed behind Wilbur's back. It is fixed behind Wilbur, but not his back. This makes it so that the camera does not follow your movements. If you move to the left or right, you have to manually move the camera to the left or right. To do this, move the reticle with the Wiimote to the edge of the screen.
Yeah.
It's not hard to do, but it's the
That
fact
sounds
that you
kind of annoying.
constantly and always have to move the camera. This makes it especially frustrating when you're being attacked by multiple enemies at once. Now you can press Z to lock onto a target, then move in relation with that target, which does help, but it's still a huge pain. I hate when I have to turn around. I usually have to manually turn the camera around 180 degrees, or sometimes I can turn Wilbur around then press Z, but that only works when there's a target behind him. Battling enemies isn't really difficult. In fact, most enemies are a little too easy to contend with. Except, however, when you're swamped by certain enemies, namely these robotic ants. Look at this! That is so not fair! I can't even get up! And even when I try to attack them, a lot of the times my attacks don't even hit them. Thank goodness you have unlimited lives and are able to restart in the level very near where you died. Otherwise, well, you get the idea. The graphics look good, although it's kind of hard to judge the graphics when I assume this is how it's supposed to look like because of the movie. They don't look bad at all, and in some areas they look great because of the detail. Nothing looks grainy, not even with the cutscenes, comparing it to Astro Boy the video game. The controls work very well. Even though controlling the camera is a pain, it's not hard to control it. Move with the analog stick and the nunchuck, use the D-pad to use your gadgets, and the minus button to switch between gadgets. The only complaint I have with the controls is that they can be very awkward to work with in the beginning, mainly when switching between gadgets. Other than that, they work great. The game has some pretty funny cutscenes, with great voice acting from a handful of characters from the movie.
Carl, you're all wound up. Let's just calm down, take a breather, and watch the sunset.
The clouds are burning.
Try squinting.
The boss battles were fun for the most part, and challenging too. However, with this boss fight, it became so annoying. Why? It wasn't because it was too difficult, which it wasn't. It was because it took forever. I'm not going to spoil on how to defeat it, but if you ever battle against it, you'll probably see why it took so long to beat it. There are lots of extras to collect in the form of artwork, cutscenes, and action figures. You can also play Charge Ball against the computer anytime you want, although it was disappointing that you couldn't play against a friend. Meet the Robinsons is a pretty fun game. Good graphics, great controls, the game is overall funny, it has a good challenge factor, the overall gameplay is fun, good boss battles, and it has a lot of extras to collect. However, the camera really diminishes the overall fun factor. Projectiles will sometimes not hit your target, which is really frustrating, and it's due to either not being precisely on your target with the reticle, or the projectile will just go off in a different direction totally.
Really annoying.
And there's a few glitches in the game, one in particular which made this boss fight last even longer than it needed to be. Overall, though, the game isn't bad. Sure, it can be very frustrating at times, but if you stick with it, you'll come to find that the overall gameplay is fun and actually pretty addicting, and worth playing it through to the end. This game gets a 3.5 out of 5 with the title of Good.
Okay, here we go. Mythmakers, Supercard GP. Let's go there. Okay. Oh boy. Oh, I think we will end on Kawasaki Snowmobiles because my back is hurting. Can't sit here for that much longer. You've never seen Meet the Robinsons?
I've seen... I think I saw it on TV once, and I saw it I saw the second half of it, so I didn't know what was going on really.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So I never watched the beginning of the movie.
It's actually pretty good.
You know what? That I think I know why. That movie. This happened a lot. When I'd watch like trailers or commercials for movies on TV, they would. It's like such a big pet peeve for me is when they would take a scene from a movie, or it would just be like a character's line, and they just play it over and over and over and over again in the commercials, so that it may be like a funny joke in the movie, but like when you watch it over and over again, it's so annoying. And I remember for that Meet the Robsons movie, it was that scene where the T-Rex is talking, and he's like talking in that weird growly, T-Rex roar type voice, and he's like, I have little arms or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they play that in the commercials so much. It was so annoying.
So much.
And that happens with so many movies.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I definitely know what you mean. That reminds me of it's not that, but it reminds me of another thing that annoyed me as a kid watching cartoons mainly. In the intro of a cartoon, a lot of times they will use clips of the actual episodes.
Yeah.
But then they will also blend in animation specifically for
the intro. Yeah.
And I remember as a kid, I didn't know that, and so I would watch constantly for the tiny little clip in any of the episodes to find where they were. And one of them in particular was DuckTales. I watched DuckTales all the time, and it's a perfect example of it because there's episode clips, but then there's intro clips.
Yeah, and the intro ones are like the animation is a lot smoother or like a lot more detailed.
Yeah.
And so when you contrast that with like the actual show's animation, it's very jarring.
But I would watch for that so often. It drove me nuts. All right. Okay, here we go. Mythmaker Superkart GP.
Oh,
It's time for the Mythmaker Superkart GP review.
It's really funny.
For the Wii. So here we go. Another game from the glorious developer that is DDI. You know, I remember watching a kart racing review from either GameSpot or Game Trailers, and the reviewer said that he thinks kart racing should be its own genre of gaming, since everyone seems to put Mario Kart high up on the pedestal and compares every kart racing game to it. Well, I try not to compare kart racers to Mario Kart, such as Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, but I do agree that kart racers should be its own genre of gaming, because if it truly was, then this game would be lower than the bottom of the barrel. It truly sucks. Superkart GP has the standard Grand Prix, single race, and time attack, with 3 levels of speeds and 3 levels of difficulty. The difficulty names are beginner, experienced, and advanced. They should read, you're going to lose, don't even try, and you'll have a better chance of a beaver gnawing off your legs and replacing them with wooden legs and being called Stumpy for the rest of your life than ever having to hope to win a single race.
What?
There are 5 cups in the game, with the next 4 locked, meaning you have to win the whole cup to unlock legs and replacing them with speed. You're going to lose, don't even try, and you'll have a better chance of a beaver gnawing off your legs and replacing them with wooden legs and being called Stumpy for the rest of your life than ever having to hope to win a single race. There are 5 cups in the game, with the next 4 locked, meaning you have to win the whole...
So you're saying the likelihood that in your life
Yes.
your legs would be gnawed off by a beaver. What? Why? What?
Because it was impossible to win. That's the point.
That's so weird.
I totally forgot I said that.
whole cup to unlock the others. I've tried and tried, but I cannot unlock the last 2 cups, and I don't care to either, since I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same tracks over and over. Literally, I'm not joking. In each cup, there are 4 tracks, so in the first 3 cups, there's potential for 12 different tracks. Hooray for math! But does DDI do this? No! They are literally the same handful of tracks in a different order. The only 2 things that are different is the same time of day and driving the tracks backwards. No, not
That's
like mirror
lame.
mode, but literally, you are turned 180 degrees around at the starting line and race the same track just in the opposite direction. So in one instance, you get to play during daylight, and then in the next cups, you get to play during the night. And in others, you get to play a reverse map. Now, doesn't that sound like fun? That really changes up things, doesn't it? I mean, who cares about being creative and adding completely new tracks, right? DDI knows all we really want is to play the same tracks over and over, sometimes in reverse, and sometimes at different times of the day. What a load of garbage. The graphics suck. This would have been a fantastic looking game on the N64, but hello, we are 2, almost 3 generations ahead of the N64. There's no excuse as to why the graphics should look this primitive. All of the characters do have different stats, such as horsepower and maneuverability, but it really doesn't matter who you choose to play as because the controls are horrible. I'll be honest though, when playing the tutorial, I didn't think the controls were all that bad. However, that quickly changed when I had to turn on a corner. I really don't know if people can understand just how bad they are without actually playing the game, but it goes like this. You'll hold the Wiimote horizontally and use it as a steering
Wow,
wheel.
it's
Hold
so
down the 2
jarring.
button to accelerate, 1 to move in reverse, the A button to brake, and jerk the Wiimote to use an item. There's no drifting, which I'm in a self-debate about whether adding the function of drifting would have either helped or made the game even worse. Anyway, the biggest problem is turning. The sensors are both under and oversensitive. If you turn the Wiimote slightly, the characters hardly
it's
ever turn
motion
in the
controls
corresponding
too?
direction.
Ugh.
However, once you hit a certain angle with the Wiimote, your character will turn way too sharply, throwing you off the
I see.
course. And actually, sometimes they don't turn sharply enough because there are so many tight corners in the game. You'll have to tap the A button to brake so you can try to maneuver on a tight bend without going off the track, but this hardly ever works unless you really know how to work with the controls.
That looks
Again,
really
unless
annoying.
you've played this game, I'm not really sure you fully understand just how frustrating and awful the controls really are. Sometimes when you get stuck, you'll have to move in reverse. However, the game won't register when you press the 1 button to go in reverse, and you'll just sit there looking like an idiot. And then sometimes when you want to go forward, the same thing will happen and the game will not register when you press the accelerator.
What?
I've never experienced this level of terrible programming in any other game. Each character must be as light
Wait,
as a feather.
can you pause?
Just look at this. How in the world does that...
You're saying when you're pressing the reverse button, it doesn't make you go in reverse?
Yeah. I'm going to replay that because I had to listen to this again.
Sometimes when you get stuck, you'll have to move in reverse. However, the game won't register when you press the 1 button to go in reverse, and you'll just sit there looking
Really?
like an idiot.
Yeah. Wow,
and then
that's crazy.
sometimes when you want to go forward, the same thing will happen and the game will not register when you press the accelerator. I've never experienced this level of terrible programming in
Right here,
any
I'm
other
like,
game. Each
Huh.
character must be as light as a feather. Just look at this. How in the world does that happen? That would mean the characters are far lighter than the weight of the cones. What a bunch of crap. It's not just the pylons, but just about every bump and sudden dip in the tracks can make your character fly out of control, especially if you're going really fast.
Wow.
It's like the developers thought, we're sure that the game isn't difficult enough, so let's make it so that if they reach a certain speed, their characters will spin out of control from a slight hindrance. It's bullcrap. Some items will give you a boost to go faster, but I find it's actually wise to not use them for fear of spinning out of control. It's like a bad joke. Some of the level designs are just stupid. Look at this example. You've got speed panels right before
gosh.
a tight right turn,
Wow,
and if you
yeah.
don't turn quickly enough, you'll fall into a gorge. But the problem is, the faster you're going, the less maneuverability you have, and so it's almost inevitable that you'll fall down the ravine.
Wow, this
Even
looks
when you're
so
playing as
bad.
a character with the highest stat of control, I can almost guarantee you that you'll fall down the canyon just about every single time. Did the developers even test their designs? Each track has many golden stars scattered throughout, with a handful of silver stars. Obtaining golden stars will unlock new characters, if you even care about that, and the silver stars are supposed to give each character their own special
That
power-up
harp
when you've
sound
collected
is
10 of
really
them,
annoying.
but the game doesn't register when you've collected any. You can run over as many of them as you want, and it'll look and sound like you've picked them up, but no, for some inane reason, you haven't. The only time the game did register me picking up the silver stars was in the dang tutorial of when it was teaching me about the silver stars. It's so difficult trying to beat the AI. They
Look at
hardly
that.
ever seem to mess up on corners.
Look at that.
Look at this.
They're all
What
in
is
single
this?
file.
Follow the leader? Why did the developers program the AI like this? Was it made so that after a developer played through one lap of each track, that's where the AI will go and follow each other like that? It's so ridiculous. This game is just crap. Come on. Oh, you can't steer with crap.
I should have overlaid the video.
The game
there.
sucks. Just totally sucks. I mean, controls are just horrible. There's no way to win. You know,
Audio is only
feel like
coming
there
in
should
from
be a
the
way.
right.
Maybe you have to become one with the game, you know? But how do you do that?
That was a very AVGN-esque
Yeah.
kind of
Do this.
Yep.
motion.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
And I'm not exaggerating here.
Horrible steering
I mean, it
controls.
kind of looks like it, but I'm really trying.
Nope. Still sucks.
It's so AVGN.
Yeah, it is.
the close-up is so funny. A witch hat.
Let's try again.
Wow.
Go. Turn. Still sucks. We'll just assume it still sucks.
Oh man, this took so long.
You piece of crap! It still sucks!
It was hard to
Mythmaker
find a
Super
pumpkin
Kart
that
GP
big.
is a horrendous game. Outdated graphics, horrible controls, lazy track designs, lazy programming overall, an unregistering programming element, namely the function of actually picking up and using the silver stars, a subpar camera, crappy music, the sound effect of the cart sounds like somebody
I
had too
can't
much
even
Taco
hear-
Bell, physics elements which
There
don't
is
make
no
any
music.
sense, and unfair AI which hardly ever makes a mistake. This game is certainly geared towards the demographic of young kids, but even a 5-year-old will know the difference between a good game and a bad game, and this is certainly a bad game. Parents, guardians, I'm telling you, please resist the tempting cheap price tag and cartoony look of this game. Your kids will not like you if you buy this for them. You have been warned. Now, if you've watched my reviews before, you probably know that I really try to find the good in a game, because I am an optimistic person. However, and I'm serious, I really couldn't find anything good to say about this game. Now, if I really had to pick something, then I would say that I thought it was kind of cool that most weapons and items stack up to 3 times if you obtain multiple item boxes. However, that's one minor detail that's so drowned out by the overall bad game design choices and elements that make up this game. DDI, this is the reason people say the Wii hardly has any good games. You are adding your crappy third-party pieces of foul garbage you call games to the Wii library and making the Wii look bad. It's not the hardware that's bad, it's the software. This game is virtually unplayable. This game gets a 0 out of 5 with the title of Complete and Ultimate Fail.
First one.
Oh yeah, there are
behind the scenes.
yeah, behind the scenes.
So, in order for me to do the pumpkin joke, I had to unlock the pumpkin character, which took 500 stars, which both Lizzie and I traded off collecting, and the game is so bad, look what it did to Lizzie.
I forgot that.
So you better appreciate it. No more of this horrible game.
Oh my god. There we go. Brains.
Did it smell inside that pumpkin?
No, it was fine.
See what he's done to my kitchen. My kitchen.
Well, at least you know your place. She's like looking at the knives.
This is creative. This is intuitive. I don't have real camera gear or lighting gear. I have to do what I can. This is called white balancing. See, I'm kind of blue right now. Not sad, but like really blue.
Boop.
Much better. Oh, I'll have to get up. Okay.
Too many things.
Too many things at once. Yeah.
I remember the camera I used was I rented it I borrowed it from the journalism department, and it's the camera that Dad uses
Oh, really?
for the ones he's trying to make.
Oh, okay.
But the default audio setting on that is mono, and that's why you were hearing only one side.
Oh, okay.
And so for that scene, I forgot to switch it to stereo.
Oh.
So yes, I was waiting to get to that review. It was a lot of fun to make, and I'm be totally honest, it was definitely inspired by AVGN. This was at a time where I was starting to watch AVGN. But I thought it was really fun.
Do you still have that Just One More Level shirt?
Yeah. Yep.
You got that, like... What, like 2008 or something?
Well, it was in the place where I started
Yeah.
reviewing you, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was probably the most complex review live scene to make.
Mm-hmm.
The most investment to make. And I remember
A lot of different
I remember
shots.
going to Walmart with Lizzie, and thankfully it was during Halloween time, so they had a bunch of pumpkins, and
Mm-hmm.
I took one, and I was like kind of trying to
Match it with your
see
head.
if I could fit it, and she was there too. She was like, "No, that one's a little too small." And I got another one. I was like, "Okay, I got the biggest one they had," and I was like, "This has to work. This is the whole point of the joke," and thankfully it did. Actually, you can see if you go back, there's a small cut right here in the pumpkin that it kind of broke. But I was like, I have to use it. I can't do it anymore.
I didn't even notice that. I think I kind of noticed it was kind of sliced a little bit, so like you could actually put it on. Yeah.
Do I still own?
Yeah. Do you still own that game?
Yeah, it's right there.
Really?
Yeah, I still have it.
Top shelf?
Yeah, right next to Super Mario Bros. The red one.
Oh yeah, here it is.
There it is.
For
The terribleness.
$6 from GameStop.
I want my $6 back,
$5.39 if you were a pro member.
which I was at the time. I want my $5.39 back. You know what? I want the $6 back. You give me a little bit.
Yeah.
Conspiracy Entertainment. DDI.
Conspiracy. The conspiracy to ruin all of the Wii's library.
Man,
To make the Wii look bad. That was the conspiracy.
Well, thank you guys for staying in the stream this long. We don't usually go this long. This is over a little over 3 hours, but I did want to end on Kawasaki Snowmobiles. So we're going to watch this one, and then we'll end the stream. Here we go.
Kawasaki Snowmobiles review for the Wii. You know, after playing through the awfulness that is Mythmaker's Super Kart GP, it will be nice to play a game not created by...
Oh no.
Yep, it's true. This is another game developed by Data Design Interactive, and let me tell you, DDI doesn't disappoint when it comes to creating horrible maggot-infested pieces of rhino feces they call games. You know, there's really no point in telling you what the game is about, because if you really want to know, go watch my Mythmaker Super Kart GP review. This game was created using the same game engine with the same crappy controls. However, this is a review, so I guess I should talk about it, even if it makes me feel like, oh crap! Ugh.
That
Sorry
one
about
I
that.
did not throw up.
So anyway, the game has a Grand Prix, Time Attack, and Single Race modes. There are 3 Grand Prix Cups with 4 tracks in each cup. There's also a whopping 2 characters to play as in the beginning, with 2 more as unlockables, if you even care about that. You know, at least in Super Kart GP, each character had their own different stats, but in this game, it literally doesn't matter who you choose to play as. The only difference is the color of each character's outfit, so pick whichever character you want, it doesn't matter because you'll still lose in the end. I say this because the controls are simply horrible. Controlling is like just
Look at
about
the
how
crowd.
every other racing
Yeah.
game on the Wii configures its controls, and that is you'll use the Wiimote like a steering wheel.
It's like
But the design
insulation.
in this game just sucks. If you tilt your Wiimote to the left or right, your character will barely turn in the corresponding direction. You have to really turn the Wiimote to get them to go anywhere, but then once you do so, they seem to love to turn way too far to the right or left, which makes you run off course.
gosh.
You have to find a sweet spot with the controls, otherwise you'll always be in last place. And don't think you'll be in first place constantly if you happen to find that sweet spot, because the AI cheats. When you're going around a corner, you'll flip over if you're going too fast, which makes sense, but it happens way too often, and sometimes it'll happen even if you're not going very fast around a corner. Now, the AI seems to never be affected by this principle, and so they can apparently go as fast as they want around any corner without flipping over. That is bullcrap. Another thing is that it seems like you are far lighter than the rest of the AI racers most of the time, because if you crash into them, you are the one that flips out of control,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the AI just shrugs
Okay.
it off.
Okay.
Sometimes when you crash into a wall, you'll get stuck indefinitely. Usually, if you get tipped over, the game will reset you back on the racetrack, but
Oh,
not every
gosh.
time. Look at this! What are you supposed to do? How about play a good game? Another thing that really annoys me is that when you try to move in reverse, the camera will switch to this mode. Now, when you're stuck like this, you'll of course want to back up and turn in the correct direction. But when the camera switches to this angle, it looks like you'll want to turn the Wiimote in the opposite direction to accommodate where it looks like you want to go, but doing so will move you in the opposite direction that you really want to go in. Why couldn't the camera just stay right behind you? There's no point in having it do this.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Now, the graphics actually don't look that bad, I'm surprised to say. The only thing that really needs improvement is the audience in the stands. Look at that! What is that? There's not even any animation to it. It looks like stale monkey barf. There's a stunt mode where you can launch off of jumps and perform tricks. The problem is you have to be going at a minimum fast speed to be in the air long enough after you launch off of a ramp to perform a trick. Most of the layout of each course has moguls and tight turns that you won't be able to build up enough speed on to perform any tricks. And another problem is actually pulling off
Whatever,
a trick.
you landed
You're
that.
supposed to jerk the Wiimote in different directions while holding down certain buttons to perform different tricks, but the game seems to only recognize 1, maybe 2 tricks. This mode isn't completely horrible, and there is a chance you can get some fun out of it. But really, wouldn't you want to be playing something else instead? This game just sucks. I went back and played it for a second and third time and really tried to beat the first cup, and I just couldn't. I did win first place on 1 or 2 of the tracks out of the 4, but still, it wasn't enough to win first place overall. And because I haven't won first place in the first cup yet, I haven't unlocked the other 2 cups. I don't understand why DDI made this game in the first place. It's so similar to Super Kart GP, and Super Kart GP was released almost 6 months before this game. Wouldn't you think they would notice the horrible reviews
Man.
Super Kart GP got and did something different with this game by, like, you know, not releasing this pile of trash? It's basically just a copy of Super Kart GP.
On turn! No. Oh! It sucks. It's just like Mythmaker's Super Kart GP. Wait a minute.
Oh.
On turn. Turn. Oh! No! It doesn't work. It still sucks.
Kawasaki Snowmobiles is a terrible game. Awful controls, cheating AI, in-game physics which seem to be against you, a severe lack of variety in all aspects of the game, and horrible game design in the sense that you can tip over
those
very
coins
easily,
do?
so it makes the game more frustrating than anything. Now I will say, not including
even
the
remember.
audience, the graphics weren't bad, and the stunt mode can be somewhat fun, that is, if you stick with it and really learn how to control the snowmobile. But still, there are way better racers out there than this. DDI, why do you make such crappy games? Don't you want to have the recognition and respect that comes when you create good games? You are just lowering yourself deeper and deeper into the ground every time you put out bad games like this. Put some pride into your work by designing, you know, good games. This game gets a 0.25 out of 5 with the title of Total Crap.
Are they even still in business anymore?
No, I don't think so. I think they died out somewhere in the development of when they were going to do Ninja Breadman 2.
Oh, okay.
So,
Jeez.
yeah, shut down in 2009. Oh my goodness. So, okay, thank you again for everybody coming out today, joining us in the stream. I hope you had a lot of fun. I did. Those were some memorable scenes, especially the Mythmakers scenes, and I like the Resident Evil one too. Was fun to make. So just be on the lookout for the next announcement in the YouTube Shorts. Probably gonna keep going, just keep going every weekend until we hit present day. But other than that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.